The sun was setting over the murky waters of the Zambezi River when Hector Rothwell, blinded by greed and rage, did the unthinkable. He pushed his own daughter, 7-year-old Lily, from the riverbank into the crocodile-infested waters below, her terrified screams echoing through the African wilderness as her tiny body splashed into the dark current. Seconds later, as Lily flailed helplessly against the approaching ripples of a massive crocodile, a thunderous trumpeting sound shattered the air. An enormous bull elephant charged from the nearby brush, plunging into the river with surprising grace, its massive trunk extending toward the drowning child, just as the crocodile's jaws were about to snap shut. What could drive a father to such monstrous betrayal? And how will this miraculous rescue by nature's gentle giant transform both their lives forever? If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share your own experiences with unexpected heroes in the comments below. Hector Rothwell had not always been a monster. Once, he had been a little boy with bright eyes and an eagerness to please his father, Harrison Rothwell, a British colonial mining executive whose cold demeanor had never softened, not even when his only son skinned his knees or won academic prizes. The Rothwell estate in Harare had been filled with expensive things but devoid of warmth, its marble floors echoing with silence rather than laughter. "Sentiment is weakness," Harrison would say, watching his son's tears with thinly veiled disgust after young Hector's pet dog died. Rothwell men build empires. Remember that. Hector remembered. He built his first mining operation at 25, his empire at 30, and met Catherine at 32. Beautiful, gentle Catherine, with her conservation degree and dreams of protecting Zimbabwe's wildlife. She was everything Hector had taught himself not to be. Compassionate, idealistic, alive with emotion. Perhaps that was why he had been drawn to her. Like a man dying of thirst stumbling upon an oasis, their courtship had been brief, passionate, a whirlwind that swept the unlikely pair from conservation galas to remote wilderness camps where Catherine studied elephant migration patterns. For one brilliant moment, Hector had believed he could have it all: his father's empire and Catherine's heart. The wedding was lavish, attended by government ministers and business tycoons. Catherine's conservation colleagues came too, uncomfortable in formal wear, whispering about whether their Catherine had sold out. Harrison Rothwell had stood stone-faced through the ceremony, pulling his son aside at the reception. "She's a distraction," he had said, glass of scotch in hand. "Don't let her softness infect you." For 3 years, Hector had balanced on the knife edge between Catherine's world and his father's. She pushed for ethical mining practices. He implemented some while hiding the worst environmental violations. She donated to conservation. He doubled his profits through bribes and shortcuts. 2 people living together but existing in different moral universes. Then Catherine became pregnant, and Hector felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced since childhood: hope. Perhaps this child would bridge their worlds, carry Catherine's compassion, but understand Hector's drive. Perhaps fatherhood would finally make him whole. The pregnancy had been difficult from the start. Catherine's delicate health deteriorated with each passing month. The doctors advised termination. Catherine refused. As her belly swelled, her face grew gaunt, her breathing labored. "This baby will be magnificent," she had whispered during her 7th month, her hand guiding Hector's to feel a kick against her stretched skin. "Promise me you'll love her enough for both of us if anything happens." "Nothing will happen," Hector had insisted. But the cold fist of fear had already closed. Around his heart, the night Lily was born, a violent storm had raged across Harare. Catherine had hemorrhaged. The private hospital's finest doctors couldn't stop the bleeding. As the machines flatlined, a nurse had placed the squalling, red-faced infant in Hector's arms. "Your daughter, Mr. Rothwell." He had looked down at the tiny creature, all wrinkled skin and angry cries, and felt nothing but hollow rage. This was the thing that had taken Catherine from him. This was the price of weakness, of love. Harrison Rothwell had appeared at the hospital as dawn broke, standing beside his son as they viewed Catherine's body. "This is why Rothwell men don't love, son," he had said, placing a heavy hand on Hector's shoulder. "It makes you vulnerable to loss." Hector had hired the best nannies money could buy and buried himself in work. He expanded his operations, clear-cutting forests for new mines, damming rivers to power his processing plants. Each environmental regulation he violated felt like a small revenge against Catherine's ideals. Each time little Lily reached for him with Catherine's eyes and smile, he turned away. As years passed, His bitterness calcified into cruelty. Harrison died, leaving Hector the sole heir to the Rothwell fortune, free from even his father's minimal oversight. His business practices grew more ruthless. The only thorn in his side was Catherine's will, which had left a significant trust fund for Lily, including land holdings along the Zambezi that contained the richest diamond deposits discovered in decades, land that would remain untouchable until Lily turned 18, or in the event of her death, would revert to Hector's control. The thought had formed slowly, like a stalactite dripping in a dark cave. At first, just a fleeting notion he could dismiss as momentary madness, then a contingency, a backup plan. Finally, on that fateful evening by the river, as Lily skipped stones and spoke of wanting to be an elephant doctor like Mommy would have. Wanted. It crystallized into action. One push, just one push, and the empire would be complete. As Hector ran through the gathering darkness, the image of the elephant's massive form rising from the water haunted him. Nature itself had intervened to stop him. Catherine's final rebuke from beyond the grave. Themba had not always been called Themba. Once, he had been just another elephant calf, trailing behind his mother through the lush riverine forests of the Zambezi Valley. His herd had been led by an ancient matriarch named Nandi, by the local Shona people, who had watched over her family for nearly 60 years. But that was before the poachers came, before the gunshots that shattered the night and left Nandi and 3 other females dead, their faces brutally hacked away for their ivory. He had been only 2 years old then, too young to survive alone, but somehow old enough to feel the magnitude of his loss. The rangers from the nearby Zambezi Elephant Sanctuary had found him standing beside his mother's mutilated body, his small trunk gently touching her cooling flank, too shocked even to trumpet his distress. "This one's still alive," Samuel Moyo had called out, his weathered face creasing with concern as he approached the traumatized calf. Samuel had been with the sanctuary since its founding 15 years earlier, and had seen too many orphans like this one. "Easy now, little one. Easy." The calf had allowed Samuel to approach, something unusual for a wild elephant who had just witnessed human violence. Perhaps he had been too depleted by grief to flee, or perhaps something in Samuel's gentle voice had reached through his trauma. Whatever the reason, he had followed the rangers back to their vehicle, his wobbly legs barely supporting his grief-heavy body. At the sanctuary, they named him Themba, Hope, in the Ndebele language. It was an aspirational name for a calf who at first refused to eat, who stood motionless in his enclosure, staring toward the distant forest where his family had died. "He needs more than we can give him," Samuel had told Dr. Elizabeth Wang, the sanctuary's director. "Elephant calves need family." The solution had come in the form of Mama Grace, an older female elephant who had been rescued from a circus 10 years earlier. Though she had never had calves of her own, some ancient instinct awoke in Grace when she was introduced to Themba. She had approached the listless calf, her trunk gently examining him from head to toe, before producing a low, rumbling greeting that vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. Themba had lifted his head at the sound, his ears flaring wide. Then, for the first time since his rescue, he had responded with a small, questioning rumble of his own. "There," Samuel had whispered to Dr. Wang. "That's it. That's Hope." Under Grace's patient guidance, Themba had learned to be an elephant again. He discovered the joy of mud baths and the satisfaction of stripping bark from branches. He played with the other orphans who arrived at the sanctuary, mock charging and wrestling as young bulls do. But unlike the others, Themba showed a unique curiosity about humans. "He watches us," Samuel explained to visitors, "not with fear or aggression, but like he's trying to understand." By the time he was 7, Themba had grown into his name. Standing nearly 9 feet tall at the shoulder, he was magnificent, his tusks growing straight and true, his eyes intelligent and calm. The sanctuary operated a soft release program, allowing the elephants to roam the protected land during the day, returning voluntarily for supplemental feeding and health checks. Themba always returned, but his wanderings took him farther than the others, often to the edges of the sanctuary that bordered private lands, including the riverside property owned by the Rothwell Mining Corporation, where a small, solemn-faced girl often came to sit alone. Samuel had noticed Themba's interest in the child. "He watches her from the tree line," he told Dr. Wang. "Never approaches, just stands guard almost." "Whose child is she?" Dr. Wang had asked. "Rothwell's daughter," Samuel replied, his expression darkening. the man who's trying to buy the land adjacent to the sanctuary for a new open-pit mine. The same Rothwell whose company was implicated in that cyanide poisoning of the water table last year? Samuel had nodded grimly. The very same. Whether Themba sensed the child's isolation or was drawn by some other instinct remained a mystery. But for months, whenever young Lily Rothwell appeared at the river, Themba would materialize on the sanctuary side, a silent sentinel partially hidden among the trees, until that evening. When the unthinkable happened, Themba had been the first to hear the splash in the child's scream. Before Samuel could even register what was happening, the bull elephant had charged down the embankment, trumpeting a challenge that froze the blood of everyone within earshot. The sanctuary staff could only watch in astonishment as Themba plunged into the river, behavior entirely outside the norm for elephants, who typically avoided deep water where crocodiles lurked. With unexpected grace, the massive animal had navigated the current, reaching the struggling child moments before the approaching crocodile could. "It's not possible," Dr. Wang had whispered, as Themba gently lifted the small body with his trunk. "Elephants don't..." They wouldn't, but Samuel, who had spent a lifetime observing these intelligent giants, just shook his head in wonder. "We don't know half of what they're capable of," he said softly. "Not even half." Now, as the sun disappeared, behind the acacia trees, Themba stood vigil over the small, still form he had placed on the sandy bank. His massive ears flared outward, catching every sound: the approach of humans, the retreat of the would-be attacker, the faint, precious sound of the child's shallow breathing. And when the humans finally approached to take the child, Themba stepped back, but not away, watching, always watching, as if his duty had only just begun. Lily Rothwell opened her eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling. Not the hand-painted stars of her bedroom at the mansion, not the polished teak of the riverside cabin, but rough-hewn wooden beams above a small bed draped with mosquito netting. Her throat felt raw, her lungs heavy, as if she'd swallowed sand. When she tried to sit up, every muscle in her body protested. "Easy there, little one." A woman's voice, warm and melodic, accompanied a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've had quite an ordeal." Lily turned her head to see a woman with close-cropped hair and kind eyes sitting beside the bed. She wore a white coat over a bright patterned dress, a stethoscope hanging around her neck. "I'm Dr. Nala Ndoro," the woman said. "You're at my clinic. Do you remember what happened?" Lily's mind reached for the memory but flinched away from it, like fingers from a hot stove. Flashes came instead, water filling her nose and mouth, the terrifying shape moving beneath the surface. Her father's face twisting with an expression she couldn't name. She tried to speak, but only a dry rasp emerged. "Here, drink some water," Dr. Nala said, holding a cup with a straw to Lily's lips. "Slowly now." After several small sips, Lily whispered, "Where's my father?" Something flickered across Dr. Nala's face. Concern, perhaps anger, before her professional demeanor returned. "We're trying to locate him now. Some fishermen brought you here after..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "After you fell into the river..." Fell. The word echoed in Lily's mind. Is that what happened? Had she fallen, or had those hands on her back, her father's hands, pushed? "There was something in the water," Lily said, her voice still a whisper. "Something big." Dr. Nala nodded. "A crocodile. They're common in that stretch of the river. But you were very lucky. Something else was there too." Before Lily could ask what she meant, the door opened, and a uniformed police officer stepped inside. His face was solemn beneath his cap, his notebook already open in his hand. "Dr. Ndoro, is she awake? We need to ask some questions." Dr. Nala rose, her petite frame somehow imposing as she faced the officer. "Detective Mutasa, she just regained consciousness. This isn't the time. There's a missing person report for Hector Rothwell," the detective said, lowering his voice. "Filed by his estate manager when he didn't return from the river outing with his daughter. We need to know what happened." "What happened," Dr. Nala said firmly, "is that this child nearly drowned and was almost killed by a crocodile. Whatever else occurred can wait until she's stronger." Detective Mutasa's gaze moved to Lily, who had shrunk back against the pillows, eyes wide and frightened. His expression softened slightly. "Very well. Tomorrow, then." He tucked away his notebook. "The media is already asking questions. Rothwell is a high-profile figure." After the detective left, Dr. Nala returned to Lily's bedside. "You don't have to talk about it until you're ready," she said gently, "but when you are, I'll be here to listen." Lily nodded, exhaustion pulling at her again. As she drifted toward sleep, she whispered, "There was something else. Something big and gray. It helped me." Dr. Nala squeezed her hand. "Rest now. You're safe." But Lily wasn't sure she was. In her dreams, she was falling again, the water rushing up to meet her. Only this time, her father's face was clear as he pushed her, not angry, not twisted with hate, but coldly calculating, as if she were a problem he was solving. She thrashed against the memory, calling out in her sleep. Then the dream shifted. The water was still there, but now something else was too. A mountain moving through the river, a gentle strength lifting her from death's door, a low rumbling sound that vibrated through her body and calmed her racing heart. Lily woke with a gasp, the clinic room now dark except for a small lamp. Dr. Nala had fallen asleep in the chair beside the bed, her white coat draped over her like a blanket. On the bedside table sat a small wooden carving of an elephant, its trunk raised in what seemed like greeting. Outside the window, a full moon illuminated the landscape, and somewhere in the distance, Lily thought she heard a trumpet call echoing. Across the savannah, the sound wasn't frightening. It felt like a promise that whatever happened next, she wasn't alone. As dawn broke, bringing the sounds of the clinic stirring to life, Lily's door opened to reveal an elderly man carrying a breakfast tray. His face was deeply lined, his movements deliberate but graceful. "Good morning, little miss," he said, setting the tray on a table. "I am Samuel. I work at the elephant sanctuary where they found you. Dr. Nala asked me to bring you some breakfast while she makes her rounds." Lily sat up straighter. "Elephant sanctuary?" Samuel nodded, a gentle smile creasing his weathered face. "Yes, the very same place where Themba lives." "Themba? The elephant who saved you." Samuel's eyes were kind but penetrating, as if measuring her reaction. He has never done anything like that before. Never gone into the deep water. Never approached a human so directly. You must be very special. Lily's hand moved unconsciously to her throat, feeling the phantom sensation of water filling her lungs. "He saved me? The elephant?" Samuel nodded, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "Would you like to hear about him?" For the first time since waking in the clinic, Lily felt something other than fear and confusion, a small spark of curiosity, of wonder. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger than before. "I would." 3 days after her rescue, Lily sat in the passenger seat of Dr. Nala's dusty Land Rover as they bumped along the dirt road leading to the Zambezi Elephant Sanctuary. The morning air flowed through the open windows, carrying the scents of wild, sage and sun-warmed earth. Lily's hair, freed from its usual tight braids, danced around her face in the breeze. "Are you comfortable?" Dr. Nala asked, glancing over. "We can stop if you need to rest." Lily shook her head. Though still weak from her ordeal, she had insisted on making this journey. Since Samuel's visit, she had thought of little else but the elephant who had saved her life. In a world that had suddenly become uncertain and frightening, Themba represented something she desperately needed. Proof that not everything was dangerous, that salvation could come from unexpected places. "There it is," Dr. Nala said, as they rounded a bend. Ahead, a wooden arch spanned the road, carved with the words, "Zambezi Elephant Sanctuary," and decorated with life-sized elephant footprints. Beyond it, Lily could see a collection of buildings nestled among acacia trees, and in the distance, the gray shapes of elephants moving across the golden grassland. Samuel was waiting for them at the main building, a single-story structure with a wide veranda and solar panels on its tin roof. As they approached, Lily noticed how at home he seemed here, as if he and the sanctuary had grown together over the years. "Welcome, little miss," he said, offering Lily a gentle smile. "We've been expecting you." Dr. Wang joined them, introducing herself as the sanctuary's director. "We've prepared a special visit," she explained, leading them toward a covered pavilion at the edge of a large, grassy enclosure. "Normally, we don't encourage this kind of interaction, but given the circumstances..." Lily followed, her heart beating faster with each step. The pavilion offered shade and a clear view of the enclosure, where several elephants were gathered around a waterhole. Dr. Wang pointed to a particularly large bull standing slightly apart from the others. "That's Themba," she said. "He's been unusually restless since that night." Lily stared at the massive animal, trying to reconcile this peaceful giant with the dramatic rescue she only half remembered. Can I thank him?" The adults exchanged glances. "Elephants are wild animals," Dr. Wang began cautiously. even those who've been rehabilitated. We need to respect their space and—" Her words cut off as Themba suddenly lifted his head, his large ears flaring outward. He turned toward the pavilion, trunk raised as if testing the air. Then, with a deliberate grace that belied his enormous size, he began walking directly toward them. "Well, I'll be—" Samuel murmured. "He knows you're here." Lily stepped forward instinctively, only to feel Dr. Nala's gentle but firm hand on her shoulder. "Stay under the pavilion, Lily. Let him come. To us." The distance between them closed slowly, magnificently. Themba's footfalls were nearly silent despite his weight, his eyes, small but incredibly expressive, fixed on Lily's face. When he reached the edge of the pavilion, he stopped, his trunk extending cautiously toward her. "He's greeting you," Samuel explained softly. "If you want to return the greeting, hold out your hand, palm up, but only if you feel comfortable." Without hesitation, Lily extended her small hand. The tip of Themba's trunk, surprisingly soft and delicately mobile, touched her palm, exploring the contours of her fingers with gentle curiosity. The sensation tickled, drawing the first genuine smile from Lily since her ordeal. "Hello, Themba," she whispered. "Thank you for saving me." A low rumble emanated from the elephant's massive chest. Not quite a sound, more a vibration Lily could feel through the soles of her feet. The familiarity of it struck her with sudden clarity. "I remember this," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I remember feeling this when I was in the water." Samuel nodded. Elephants communicate in ways we're only beginning to understand. Some frequencies they use are below human hearing, but we can feel them. For nearly an hour, Lily sat on the edge of the pavilion while Themba remained nearby, sometimes approaching to touch her gently with his trunk, sometimes simply standing guard as if ensuring her continued safety. The other adults watched in amazement at the unlikely bond forming before their eyes. "In all my years working with elephants," Dr. Wang murmured to Dr. Nala, "I've never seen anything quite like this." "Trauma creates unexpected connections," Dr. Nala replied, her medical training providing one framework for understanding. "Both of them have survived something terrible." Samuel had a different perspective, or perhaps they recognized something in each other, he suggested. Both lost their mothers too young, both navigating a world that can be cruel. As the sun climbed higher, signaling the end of their visit, Lily found herself reluctant to leave. "Can I come back tomorrow?" she asked. "Doctor," Nala hesitated. "The detective still needs to speak with you, Lily, and we need to figure out—" She trailed off, unsure how to explain the complicated situation to a 7-year-old. Hector Rothwell was still missing. The authorities had questions that needed answers. Lily's future hung in an uncertain balance. Seeing Lily's crestfallen expression, Samuel knelt beside her. "Themba will be here whenever you can visit," he assured her. "And meanwhile, would you like to draw him a picture? Elephants can't see colors well, but they recognize shapes. I could hang it where he would see it." Lily's face brightened. "I'd like that." As they prepared to leave, Themba did something that left even Samuel speechless. He plucked a small branch from a nearby acacia tree, stripped it of leaves with dexterous movements of his trunk, and then placed it deliberately at Lily's feet. "A gift," Samuel said, his voice thick with emotion. "He's giving you a gift." Lily picked up the branch, holding it carefully as if it were made of precious metal rather than simple wood. "I'll keep it forever," she promised. On the drive back to the clinic, Lily clutched the branch in one hand, while using her other hand to sketch in a notebook Dr. Nala had given her. With growing confidence, the shape of an elephant emerged on the page. Not just any elephant, but Themba, his trunk raised in greeting, his eyes watchful and wise. "Dr. Nala," she said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence, "what's going to happen to me?" The question, so direct, so impossible to answer truthfully without causing pain, caught Dr. Nala off guard. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, choosing her words with care. "Right now, you're staying with me at the clinic until you're fully recovered," she said. "After that, we'll figure it out together, okay?" Lily nodded, returning to her drawing. But Dr. Nala couldn't help noticing how the child added something to the sketch. A small human figure standing beside the elephant, the two of them facing an uncertain horizon together. In a luxury hotel suite in Johannesburg, Hector Rothwell stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. 4 days of stubble darkened his usually clean-shaven face. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive shirt wrinkled from being slept in. The The man looking back at him was a stranger, disheveled, haunted, diminished. The television in the adjacent room droned on, the news anchor's voice a persistent reminder of his unraveling world. The search continues for mining magnate Hector Rothwell, who disappeared 4 days ago following an incident at the Zambezi River that nearly claimed his daughter's life. Sources close to the investigation report that witnesses saw Rothwell flee the scene after the child was rescued from a crocodile attack by what locals are calling a miraculous intervention by a sanctuary elephant. Hector splashed cold water on his face, trying to wash away the memories that clung to him like a fever dream. The look on Lily's face as she fell backward, not just fear, but bewildered betrayal. The sound of her small body hitting the water, the unexpected, thunderous arrival of the elephant that had changed everything. He had run, driven by pure instinct, the same cold, self-preserving instinct his father had cultivated in him. He had abandoned his company vehicle at a remote bus station and paid cash for a ticket to Johannesburg, where he checked into this hotel under a false name. His first coherent thought had been to call Victor, his most trusted employee. Now, Victor sat in the suite's living area, his laptop open on the coffee table, his expression grim as he reported his findings. "It's not good, sir," he said when Hector emerged from the bathroom. "The police have opened a formal investigation. The fishermen have given statements. They saw," Victor hesitated, his loyalty to his employer warring with the horror of what had been described to him. "They saw me push her," Hector finished flatly. "That's what you're trying to say," Victor nodded, unable to meet his employer's eyes. "The media is running with the story. Your company's stock has dropped 15% since the news broke. The board is calling for an emergency meeting." Hector moved to the window, looking out at the Johannesburg skyline without really seeing it. "And Lily? Is she alive?" Victor confirmed, being treated at a local clinic near the sanctuary. A doctor in Doro is overseeing her care. A wave of something, relief, regret, washed over Hector, leaving him lightheaded. He steadied himself against the windowsill. "Good. That's good." Victor watched him carefully. In 15 years of working for Hector Rothwell, he had never seen the man vulnerable, let alone broken. It was unsettling, like watching a lion with a thorn in its paw, dangerous in its pain, unpredictable. "Sir, if I may, what happened out there?" Hector turned, his face hardening into more familiar lines. "What happened is irrelevant now. What matters is damage control." He moved to the minibar, pouring himself a generous measure of scotch. "I need options, Victor." Victor closed his laptop. "With respect, sir, I think what happened is very relevant. If you pushed your daughter into crocodile-infested waters, that's attempted murder. There's no damage control for that." The glass in Hector's hand froze halfway to his lips. "Careful, Victor. I've been careful for 15 years, Victor replied, a new resolve in his voice. "I've looked the other way when you bribed officials. I've rewritten environmental reports. I've paid off villagers whose lands you've contaminated. But this," he shook his head, "a child, your own daughter." Hector downed the scotch in one swallow, welcoming the burn. "You don't understand the pressures I'm under, the land holdings. In Catherine's will." "I understand perfectly," Victor interrupted. "The diamond deposits under Lily's inherited land would triple the company's value, but she's the sole beneficiary until she turns 18, and you couldn't wait that long. So you decided to eliminate the obstacle." Hearing it stated so plainly made Hector flinch. The cold calculation that had seemed so rational by the riverside now sounded monstrous echoing back at him in this hotel room. "It wasn't like that," he said, though the protest sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Then what was it like?" Victor pressed. Hector poured another drink, his hand less steady now. "I don't know. She was talking about Catherine, about becoming a conservationist like her mother, looking at me with Catherine's eyes, judging me with Catherine's values. I just snapped." Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, gathering his belongings. "I've booked you a private flight to Cape Town. From there you can connect to any number of countries without extradition treaties. The details are in this envelope." He placed a thick manila envelope on the table. "That's all the help I can offer. After this, our association is ended." Panic flared in Hector's chest. "You're abandoning me now? After everything, I'm choosing not to follow you any further down this path," Victor corrected. "There's a difference." As Victor reached the door, Hector called after him. "What would you do? In my position, what would you do?" Victor paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I'd turn myself in. I'd beg my daughter's forgiveness, though I wouldn't. Deserve it. I'd face the consequences of my actions like a man. He looked back at his former employer with something like pity. But we both know you won't do that. After Victor left, Hector returned to the window, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk fell. The rational, practical part of his mind, the part his father had cultivated so carefully, knew Victor was right about the escape plan. There would be no coming back from this. The empire he had built would crumble, but he could start again. Elsewhere, reinvent himself with the millions he had stashed in offshore accounts. Yet something else tugged at him, something unfamiliar and uncomfortable. The image of Lily's face as she fell kept surfacing in his mind, alongside another, older memory, Catherine in the hospital, making him promise to love their daughter enough for both of them, a promise he had not just broken but shattered beyond repair. His phone chimed with a news alert. When he glanced at the screen, his blood ran cold. The headline read, "Miracle Child, Rothwell Heiress, Forms Bond with Elephant Rescuer." Below it was a photograph of Lily at what appeared to be the elephant sanctuary, her small hand extended toward the trunk of an enormous bull elephant. Her face, in profile, showed an expression Hector had never seen before, wonder mixed with something like peace. She had survived. Despite his actions, despite his betrayal, she had survived and found something pure in the aftermath of his cruelty. Hector sank onto the edge of the bed, the phone slipping from his grasp. For the first time since Catherine's death, hot tears spilled down his cheeks, not for himself, not for his crumbling empire, but for the daughter who had somehow found grace in a world where her own father had offered only violence. The weight of what he had done, what he had almost done, crashed over him like a physical blow. In that moment, the carefully constructed fortress of his justifications began to crack. A week after her rescue, Lily sat cross-legged on a woven mat in Dr. Nala's garden, surrounded by colored pencils and sheets of paper. The clinic had become her temporary home, her bedroom a small space that Dr. Nala had quickly transformed with colorful curtains and a hand-painted bookshelf. Though police officers and social workers came and went, asking gentle but persistent questions, this corner of the garden had become Lily's refuge. Her drawings had evolved over the days. What began as simple outlines of elephants had become more detailed, more nuanced. Today she was working on her most ambitious piece yet, a panorama of the sanctuary with all its elephants, each one distinct in size and posture, with Themba at the center, his tusks carefully rendered in warm ivory. Dr. Nala watched from the clinic's back porch, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The transformation in the child amazed her, though Lily still hadn't spoken about what happened at the river, still flinched at sudden movements and woke crying from nightmares. She had found a language in these drawings, a way to process her experience without words. Samuel, who visited daily to take Lily to the sanctuary, approached the porch with his characteristic quiet tread. "She has a gift," he observed, nodding toward Lily's artwork. "She has a healing heart," Dr. Nala replied. Despite everything, Samuel lowered his voice. "Any word from the father?" Dr. Nala shook her head. "Nothing. Detective Mutasa thinks he's left the country." She hesitated, then added what they were both thinking. "Perhaps that's for the best. And what happens to her now?" It was the question that had kept Dr. Nala awake for several nights. As Lily's treating physician, she had temporary guardianship, but that arrangement couldn't last forever. Child welfare services were already making inquiries about relatives. "Who might take the girl? I don't know," she admitted. "Her mother's family is all in England. People she's never met. Her father's side," she trailed off. The Rothwell family was not known for its warmth. Samuel's weathered hand covered hers. Briefly, a gesture of solidarity. "She has found friends here," he said simply. Across the garden, Lily had set aside her panorama and was working on something new, a single elephant eye, rendered with such detail and emotion that it seemed to look back at the viewer with profound intelligence. "Themba," she said, when she noticed the adults watching her. It was the first word she had spoken that morning. "That's beautiful, Lily," Dr. Nala called. "You've captured his wisdom." Lily nodded, returning to her work with the focused intensity that Dr. Nala had come to recognize as the child's way of holding difficult emotions at bay. The drawing wasn't just art, it was communication, perhaps even therapy. That afternoon, when Samuel took Lily for her daily visit to the sanctuary, Dr. Nala accompanied them. She watched as Lily moved with growing confidence around Themba, no longer needing the safety of the pavilion. The elephant seemed to understand her fragility, his movements deliberate and gentle despite his enormous size. "She's speaking to him," Samuel noted as they observed from a distance. "Indeed." Lily was whispering something to Themba, her small hand resting against his leathery skin, her face upturned to his. "What do you think she's telling him?" Dr. Nala wondered. Samuel's eyes crinkled at the corners. Her secrets, her fears, the things she cannot tell us yet. When they returned to the clinic that evening, Lily was quieter than usual, her face thoughtful. As Dr. Nala helped her prepare for bed, the child suddenly asked, "Can elephants forgive people who hurt them?" The question caught Dr. Nala off guard. "I think," she said carefully, "that elephants have very long memories. They remember both kindness and cruelty." Lily nodded, absorbing this. "And what about people? Do they have to forgive?" The weight behind the question was unmistakable. Dr. Nala sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words with care. "Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, Lily. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to carry the pain forever." "I don't think I can forgive him," Lily whispered, naming neither the person nor the act, though both hung in the air between them. "You don't have to decide that now," Dr. Nala assured her, smoothing the blanket. "Or ever, if that's not what your heart tells you is right." Lily was quiet for so long that Dr. Nala thought she might have drifted off to sleep. Then, in a voice so soft it was barely audible, "He didn't want me, not ever." The simple statement, delivered without tears but with a bone-deep certainty, broke something in Dr. Nala's professional composure. She gathered the child into her arms, holding her close. "Then he missed knowing the most remarkable person," she said fiercely. "That is his loss, Lily, not yours. Never yours." That night, for the first time since her rescue, Lily slept without nightmares. When Dr. Nala checked on her in the early hours, she found the child curled around the wooden elephant carving Samuel had given her, her breathing deep and even. The next morning brought a breakthrough. As Samuel arrived for the daily sanctuary visit, Lily met him at the door with a stack of drawings. "I want to tell what happened," she said, her voice small but determined. "With these." The drawings were arranged in sequence, Lily and her father, by the river. Her father's face, cold and distant, the moment of falling, the dark water closing over her head, the crocodile approaching, and finally, magnificently, Themba charging into the river, trunk extended toward her. Detective Mutasa was called. With gentle guidance from Dr. Nala, Lily used the drawings to tell her story, pointing to each image as she found the words to accompany it. "He said we were going to look for birds," she explained, pointing to the first drawing. "But then he got a phone call, and his face changed." Her finger moved to the second image, where her father's features were drawn with chilling accuracy, not monstrous or exaggerated, but coldly calculating. "He talked about Mom's land and diamonds," she continued. "Then he said," her voice faltered, "he said I was in his way, just like Mom was." Dr. Nala squeezed her shoulder gently, encouraging her to continue at her own pace. "Then he pushed me," Lily said simply, indicating the third drawing. "And I was in the water, and I couldn't breathe, and I saw the crocodile coming." Her finger moved to the final drawing, Themba's dramatic entrance. "But then Themba came, and he wasn't scared of the crocodile or the water. He lifted me up and carried me to the shore." For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. "He saved me." Detective Mutasa closed his notebook, his face grave but kind. "Thank you, Lily. You're very brave to tell us what happened." When he had gone, Lily looked up at Dr. Nala with eyes too old for her 7 years. "What happens now?" Dr. Nala knelt to meet her gaze. "Now we keep healing, one day at a time." Lily nodded, reaching for a blank sheet of paper and her colored pencils. "I want to draw Themba teaching the baby elephants," she announced. "Samuel says he's good at that." And so, as the investigation into Hector Rothwell formally shifted to attempted murder, his daughter began drawing new stories where fear gave way to courage, where loss opened the door to unexpected connections, where rescue came in surprising forms. Detective Jairus Mutasa had been with the Zimbabwe Republic Police for 23 years. He had investigated corruption, poaching syndicates, and organized crime, but nothing in his career had prepared him for the Rothwell case. A wealthy, powerful man attempting to murder his own child for financial gain. The morning after Lily's testimony, Mutasa sat in his cramped office at the rural police station, surrounded by case files and coffee cups. On the wall behind his desk hung a map of the region, with the Rothwell properties marked in red. The family's influence stretched across the landscape like a spider's web: mines, processing facilities, real estate, and most significantly, the land trust Hector Rothwell had established for her daughter. "Sir," his young assistant, Officer Hansi Sibanda, appeared in the doorway. The forensic team's report from the riverside. Mutasa took the folder, scanning its contents. The physical evidence corroborated the witness statements. Footprints showing an adult male and child at the edge of a steep bank, disturbances in the soil suggesting a sudden movement, a child-sized shoe recovered downstream. Most damningly, fibers from Lily's dress had been found under a protruding tree root at a height consistent with being pushed rather than accidentally falling. "And the international alerts?" Mutasa asked, closing the file. "Still active, sir. No confirmed sightings of Rothwell since Johannesburg 4 days ago." Mutasa rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the case. Pursuing a man like Hector Rothwell wasn't just about justice. It was about navigating a minefield of political connections, corporate lawyers, and international jurisdiction issues. "The fishermen who witnessed the incident," he said, "have they been offered any incentives to change their stories?" Sibanda's expression confirmed his suspicions. 2 of them were approached by Rothwell mining representatives, offered relocation and compensation for a misunderstanding. "And?" "They refused, sir." There was pride in the young officer's voice. "Said they couldn't sleep at night if they didn't tell the truth about what they saw." Mutasa nodded, a small satisfaction in an otherwise troubling case. "Keep them protected. Rothwell has connections everywhere." After Sibanda left, Mutasa turned to his computer, reviewing the search results for Hector Rothwell's financial activities. The pattern was clear. In the months leading up to the incident, Rothwell had liquidated assets, transferred funds to offshore accounts, and restructured his holdings. He had been planning something significant, perhaps not murder initially, but certainly a major change in his circumstances. The most interesting discovery came from Victor Moyo, Rothwell's assistant, who had stepped forward with information after resigning his position. According to Victor, Rothwell had commissioned geological surveys of the land held in Lily's trust, surveys that confirmed the presence of a diamond deposit potentially worth billions. "Follow the money," Mutasa murmured to himself. "An investigator's oldest adage." In this case, the money led to a 7-year-old girl, whose father had tried to kill her to gain control of her inheritance. That afternoon, Mutasa drove to the clinic to check on Lily. He found her in the garden with Dr. Nala, helping to plant seedlings in small pots. "Detective?" Dr. Nala greeted him, wiping soil from her hands. "Any news?" He shook his head slightly, indicating they should speak privately. To Lily, he said, "Those are beautiful plants. What are you growing?" "Acacia trees," Lily replied, her focus on carefully patting soil around a tiny sprout. "Samuel says they're Themba's favorite. When they're bigger, we'll plant them at the sanctuary." "That's a wonderful idea," Mutasa said, his gruff demeanor softening as it always did around children. "You're helping things grow." Lily looked up at him, her eyes serious. "Have you found my father yet?" The directness of the question, delivered without emotion, reminded Mutasa that this was no ordinary child. Trauma had a way of stripping away childhood's softness, replacing it with a sharp-edged clarity. "Not yet," he answered honestly. "But we're looking very hard." Lily nodded, returning to her planting. "He won't come back for me. He never wanted me anyway." The matter-of-fact acceptance in her voice troubled Mutasa more than tears would have. He caught Dr. Nala's eye, and they moved a few steps away. "The trust documents," he said quietly. "We've obtained copies." Hector Rothwell was very thorough in protecting her daughter's inheritance. In the event of Lily's death before age 18, the land would indeed revert to Hector, but with a crucial stipulation: it could only be used for conservation purposes, never mining. Dr. Nala's eyes widened. So even if he had succeeded, he couldn't have mined the diamonds legally, Mutasa confirmed, though I suspect he had plans to circumvent those restrictions. "Does Lily have any other family who could take custody? The situation at the clinic is temporary at best." Mutasa consulted his notebook. "Catherine's parents are deceased. She has an aunt in London who's been notified but hasn't responded. On Hector's side, there's only his elderly uncle who lives in a care facility in Cape Town. So she's effectively alone," Dr. Nala said, her gaze returning to Lily, who was now carefully watering her seedlings. "For now," Mutasa agreed. "Child welfare services will need to make arrangements soon." Later that day, Mutasa visited the elephant sanctuary, where, Samuel was overseeing the afternoon feeding. The elderly caretaker listened thoughtfully as Mutasa updated him on the investigation. "The land trust issue explains much," Samuel said when Mutasa finished. "Rothwell has been trying to buy the sanctuary land for years. We refused, of course, but he's been purchasing everything around us. The pressure has been enormous. Could you show me where exactly the incident occurred?" Mutasa asked. Samuel led him through the sanctuary to the river boundary. The spot was marked with police tape, the bank showing signs of the forensic team's activity. "I was over there," Samuel said, pointing to a cluster of trees about 50 meters away. "Checking on a new elephant calf. I heard the splash and the scream, then Themba's trumpet. By the time I got here, Themba was already in the water." Mutasa surveyed the scene, mentally reconstructing the events. "And Rothwell? Where did he go?" Samuel pointed to a barely visible trail leading away from the river. "He ran that way, toward where his vehicle was parked. He never looked back, not even to see if Lily survived." The coldness of that fact hung in the air between them. Mutasa made a note in his book, then asked, "In your experience, Samuel, is what Themba did normal elephant behavior?" Samuel's weathered face creased. "In thought. Elephants are intelligent, compassionate creatures. They've been known to help their own kind in distress. But to rescue a human child from a river, to face down a crocodile," he shook his head. "No, detective. What Themba did was extraordinary. As they walked back toward the sanctuary buildings, Themba himself appeared on a nearby hill, his massive form silhouetted against the late afternoon sky. He stood watching them, trunk raised slightly as if in greeting. He's been keeping closer to the boundaries since that day," Samuel explained, almost as if he's watching for her. Mutasa, not usually given to fanciful thinking, found himself wondering about the connection between the traumatized child and this magnificent animal. Both victims of human cruelty in different ways, both survivors. "Samuel," he said as they reached the parking area, "keep me informed if Rothwell makes any attempt to contact the sanctuary. He may be on the run, but men like him don't abandon their ambitions entirely. You think he might return?" Mutasa looked back toward the river, where the lives of a father, a daughter, and an elephant had collided in a moment of crisis and miracle. "I think," he said carefully, "that this case isn't closed yet, not by a long way." 2 weeks after disappearing. From the riverbank, Hector Rothwell stood in the shadow of an abandoned hunting lodge on the outskirts of his property, watching his former life through binoculars. The sprawling Rothwell estate lay before him, its manicured gardens and colonial architecture a monument to generational wealth and privilege. Security guards patrolled the perimeter, their numbers increased since his disappearance. He had not fled the country as Victor and the authorities expected. Something had stopped him from boarding that private plane to Cape Town, something he couldn't quite name, but that felt like an anchor holding him to this land, to this unfinished business. Instead, he had gone underground, using cash and old connections to move through Zimbabwe undetected. He had traded his bespoke suits for nondescript clothing, his luxury watch for a cheap digital timepiece. His usually clean-shaven face was now obscured by a beard, his skin darkened by days in the sun. The news reports followed his case with relentless interest. "Rothwell manhunt continues," the headlines proclaimed. "Mining tycoon accused of attempting to murder daughter." His company's stock had plummeted. The board had appointed an interim CEO. Former associates were distancing themselves publicly. Yet none of that concerned him as much as the smaller headlines, the human interest stories that had begun appearing. Miracle child, an elephant guardian form, special bond. These featured photographs of Lily at the sanctuary, her small face transformed by wonder as she interacted with the elephant that had saved her life. Lowering the binoculars, Hector retreated into the dusty interior of the lodge. The place had been abandoned years ago, when the hunting concession was converted to a photography safari operation, then forgotten in the corporate reshuffling. It made a perfect hideout, connected to the Rothwell property yet overlooked in the search. On a rickety table lay newspapers, a battery-powered radio, and a disposable phone he used sparingly. Beside them, a half-empty bottle of whiskey and a loaded pistol, insurance against the various endings he'd contemplated in his darker moments. He poured himself a drink, the cheap glass a far cry from the crystal tumblers of his former life. As the liquor burned down his throat, he unfolded the most recent newspaper, studying the photograph of Lily at the sanctuary. She looked different somehow, still solemn, still wounded, but with a spark in her eyes that he had never managed to nurture during their 7 years together. The article quoted Dr. Nala Ndoro, described as Lily's temporary guardian. Lily's connection with Themba is helping her process her trauma in remarkable ways. Animals often sense vulnerability and respond with instinctive compassion. In Themba's case, that compassion extended to an extraordinary act of rescue. Hector's eyes lingered on the doctor's name. He had made inquiries about her. A respected physician who had given up a lucrative career in Harare to run a rural clinic serving communities affected by mining operations, including his own. The irony wasn't lost on him. The radio crackled with the evening news broadcast. He turned up the volume when the reporter mentioned his name. Police have expanded the search for Hector Rothwell to neighboring countries, though investigators believe he may have traveled farther afield. Meanwhile, Child Welfare Services are reviewing the custody situation for his daughter, Lily Rothwell, currently under the care of Dr. Nala Ndoro. Sources close to the case suggest that with no immediate family available, the child may enter the foster system within the month. The foster system. The words hit Hector like a physical blow. Whatever his failings as a father, and they were enormous, monstrous, the thought of Lily being passed between strangers, institutionalized, awakened something protective he hadn't known he possessed, or perhaps he had known once. Before Catherine's death had twisted his grief into resentment, before his father's coldness had become his own, he switched off the radio and moved to the lodge's grimy window, staring out at the gathering dusk. In the distance, the lights of the Rothwell estate winked on, illuminating a world he had sacrificed everything to build, and then, in one moment of madness, destroyed. A new plan was forming in his mind, not escape, not evasion, but something else entirely. Something that required facing what he had done, what he had become. He reached for the disposable phone. At the Elephant Sanctuary, Dr. Nala was helping Lily prepare for bed in the small guest cottage they had been offered temporarily. The child's drawings covered one wall, a gallery of elephants, rivers, and increasingly, people. Samuel, Dr. Wang, Detective Mutasa, and Dr. Nala herself, rendered with growing skill and attention to detail. "Will we come back tomorrow?" Lily asked as Dr. Nala tucked her in. "Of course," Dr. Nala assured her. "Samuel said Themba has been looking for you all day." Lily smiled. A still rare occurrence that Dr. Nala treasured each time. "He knows when I'm coming. I don't know how, but he knows." "Elephants are very intelligent," Dr. Nala said, smoothing the blanket. "They can sense things we can't always understand." After Lily had fallen asleep, Dr. Nala stepped onto the cottage's small porch, where Samuel sat in a weathered rocking chair, carving a small piece of wood with his pocket knife. "Another elephant?" she asked, nodding toward his handiwork. "A bird this time," he replied, showing her the emerging shape of a fish eagle. "She likes to watch them hunting over the river." Dr. Nala sat in the adjacent chair, the events of the day settling heavily on her shoulders. "The social worker came by the clinic today. They've identified a potential foster placement in Harare." Samuel's hands stilled. "So soon?" "There's a shortage of placements. They're prioritizing her case because of the media attention." Dr. Nala sighed. "They want to move her next week. Away from the sanctuary, away from Themba, away from all of us." Dr. Nala confirmed, the weight of this reality making her voice rough with emotion. Over these weeks, Lily had become more than a patient to her. The child's resilience, her quiet determination to heal, had awakened a fierce protectiveness in the doctor. What will this do to her recovery? Samuel wondered, resuming his carving with less steady hands. To be uprooted again, just as she's beginning to trust? Dr. Nala had been asking herself the same question. The psychological wounds of Hector's betrayal were still raw. Lily's nightmares had only recently begun to subside. Her voice, silenced in the aftermath of the trauma, was just finding its strength again. "I've filed for temporary guardianship," Dr. Nala admitted. "But as a single woman with a demanding career, running a clinic in a remote area, the odds aren't in my favor." Samuel nodded his understanding. Zimbabwe's foster system, like many, prioritized traditional family structures, and her father's family want nothing to do with her. They're closing ranks around Hector, claiming he's innocent despite all evidence. Dr. Nala's voice hardened. They see her as a threat to the family legacy, not a child who needs love. They sat in silence as darkness settled fully over the sanctuary. In the distance, the low rumbling communication of elephants carried on the night air, Themba's distinctive voice among them. "She belongs here," Samuel said finally. "Where she can heal. Where she's protected." Dr. Nala nodded, the same conviction growing in her heart. "Yes, she does." Later that night, as Dr. Nala checked on Lily one last time before retiring to her own room, her phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. "I know where Rothwell is. Meet me at the old hunting lodge on the eastern boundary. Come alone. This ends tomorrow." Dr. Nala stared at the message, her pulse quickening. After a moment's hesitation, she forwarded it to Detective Mutasa with a simple addition. "What should I do?" His response came quickly. "Nothing. We'll handle this. Stay with Lily. Keep her safe." But as Dr. Nala looked down at the sleeping child, whose life had been shattered by a father's betrayal and saved by an elephant's compassion, she knew that safety was more complicated than locked doors and police protection. True safety would only come when the threat was resolved, when Lily could begin building a life defined by more than survival. Outside, a gentle rain began to fall, drumming on the cottage roof. In the sanctuary, the elephants continued their night chorus, a sound as ancient as the land itself. And somewhere in the darkness, a father who had lost his way was making one final move in a game with stakes higher than he had ever imagined. Dawn at the sanctuary brought with it a sense of foreboding. Dr. Nala had slept fitfully, the mysterious text message playing on her mind, despite Detective Mutasa's assurances that his team would handle the situation. As she prepared breakfast in the cottage's small kitchen, she found herself checking the windows more frequently than usual, scanning the perimeter for unfamiliar faces. Lily emerged from her bedroom, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair tousled, but her face peaceful. These morning moments, before the weight of memory fully settled on the child's shoulders, were precious to Dr. Nala. For a few brief minutes, Lily was simply a 7-year-old girl starting her day, not a victim, not a case study in trauma and resilience. "Can we see Themba after breakfast?" Lily asked, accepting a bowl of porridge topped with honey and banana slices. "Of course," Dr. Nala replied, making a mental note to check with Detective Mutasa before venturing out. "Samuel said he has something special to show you today." As they ate, Dr. Nala's phone buzzed with a message from Mutasa. "Lodge secured. No sign of Rothwell but evidence of recent occupation. Expanding search. Additional officers at sanctuary perimeter. Proceed with normal routine, but stay alert." Dr. Nala exhaled slowly. The police were taking the threat seriously, which was reassuring, but the fact that Hector remained at large, and potentially nearby, sent a chill through her. By mid-morning, they made their way to the central sanctuary compound, where Samuel was waiting with Dr. Wang. The atmosphere was tense. Even Lily sensed it, staying closer to Dr. Nala than usual as they walked to the elephant enclosure. "Extra security today," Samuel explained quietly to Dr. Nala, nodding toward the uniformed officers stationed discreetly around the compound. "Detective's orders. Is something wrong?" Lily asked, her perceptiveness catching the adults off guard. Dr. Wang knelt to her level. "Just a precaution, Lily. Like how we have extra fencing around the baby elephants to keep them extra safe." Lily seemed to accept this explanation, though her eyes lingered on the officers. "Is my father coming back?" The directness of the question silenced the adults momentarily. It was Dr. Nala who finally answered, choosing honesty over false reassurance. "Boom. Don't know, Lily. But if he does, there are many people here to protect you." Lily nodded, her expression solemn. "Themba would protect me too." "Yes," Samuel agreed. "He would." He offered his hand to Lily. "Come, let me show you something special today." He led them to an area of the sanctuary they hadn't visited before, a nursery where the youngest orphaned elephants were cared for. Inside a spacious hay-lined enclosure, 3 elephant calves no higher than Lily's shoulder romped and played under the watchful eye of a caretaker. "These little ones arrived last month," Samuel explained, "victims of a poaching incident near Huanghe. Their mothers were killed, but rangers found them hiding in the brush." Lily approached the fence, her expression softening as she watched the calves tussle and trumpet. "They're so small." "Yes, but they're survivors, just like you." Samuel opened a gate, inviting Lily inside. "Would you like to help feed them?" For the next hour, the tension of the morning receded as Lily helped prepare milk formula in giant bottles and assisted, the caretakers with feeding the eager calves. Her laughter, a sound still rare enough to catch Dr. Nala by surprise, rang out when one particularly enthusiastic baby wrapped its trunk around her arm, seeking more milk. "They like you," Samuel observed. "They can sense your gentle spirit." As they were leaving the nursery, a deep rumbling trumpet announced Themba's arrival. The bull elephant approached the main compound at a deliberate pace, his massive presence commanding attention. Even the security officers straightened, watching with a mixture of awe and wariness, as the elephant made his way directly to where Lily stood. "He knows our schedule better than we do," Dr. Wang said with a small smile, "and he's right on time." Themba stopped at the wooden fence, extending his trunk toward Lily in what had become their ritual greeting. The child reached out without hesitation, touching the sensitive tip of his trunk with gentle fingers. "Hello, Themba," she said. "I met the babies today." The elephant's ears flared forward at the sound of her voice, his small eyes regarding her, with what even the scientific Dr. Wang had begun to accept as genuine affection. "He's been teaching the young bulls," Samuel told Lily, "showing them how to find water during the dry season, how to respect the older females. It's unusual behavior. For a bull his age, they're typically more solitary." "Maybe he was lonely before," Lily suggested, her insight striking in its simplicity. Samuel exchanged glances with Dr. Nala. Perhaps he was. As the morning progressed into afternoon, dark clouds began gathering on the horizon, the beginning of one of the sudden, violent storms common to the region. Dr. Wang checked the weather radar on her phone. "We should head back to the main building," she advised. "This looks like it could be severe." They had just reached the education center when the heavens opened, rain lashing down with tropical intensity. Thunder boomed overhead, and lightning split the darkened sky. Through the windows they could see the sanctuary staff hurrying to secure equipment and check on the more vulnerable animals. Themba remained visible through the downpour, standing calmly near the fence where they had left him, seemingly unbothered by the storm. Other elephants were seeking shelter under the large acacia trees, but he maintained his vigil. "Why isn't he going to shelter?" Lily asked, pressing her face to the window. Samuel stood beside her, watching the elephant with curious eyes. "He's watching over something, or someone." The radio at one security officer's belt crackled to life. "Perimeter breach at southeast corner. All units respond. Repeat, perimeter breach at southeast corner." The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The officers moved with practiced efficiency, one positioning himself at the door while another guided Dr. Nala, Lily, and the sanctuary staff toward an interior room. "What's happening?" Lily asked, her voice rising with fear as she was ushered away from the window. Dr. Nala kept an arm around her shoulders. "Just a security check, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about." But the tension in the adults' faces told a different story. Through the rain-streaked windows, they could see security personnel running toward the southeast perimeter, their forms blurred by the downpour. And in the distance, Themba had turned toward the same direction, his massive, head raised, trunk testing the storm-laden air. Then, with a suddenness that belied his size, he began moving, not away from the disturbance, but directly toward it. Samuel's weathered face creased with concern. "He senses something." Dr. Wang was already on her phone, her voice urgent. "All staff clear the southeast sector. Themba is moving that way and he's agitated." As they were led to the secure room, Lily looked back over her shoulder, her last glimpse through the windows showing Themba's enormous silhouette disappearing into the curtain of rain, moving with purpose toward whatever, or whoever, had breached the sanctuary's boundaries. Hector Rothwell moved through the sanctuary perimeter like a ghost, the storm providing perfect cover for his infiltration. Rainwater streamed down his face, plastering his clothing to his body as he navigated the familiar terrain. He had studied the security protocols during his time hiding at the lodge, noting patrol patterns and shift changes. The southeastern boundary, with its dense vegetation and uneven ground, offered the weakest point of entry. What he hadn't anticipated was the weather turning this violent. The path before him had transformed into a muddy channel, the rainwater gathering force as it rushed downhill toward the river. Lightning illuminated the landscape in strobing flashes, thunder following almost instantly, directly overhead. But Hector pressed on, driven by a plan that had crystallized during his weeks in hiding. He wasn't here to harm Lily. That madness had passed, leaving behind a clarity that was almost more painful. He was here to see her one last time before surrendering himself to the authorities. To say, what? An apology seemed grotesquely inadequate, an explanation impossible. Perhaps just to look upon her face once more, to carry that image with him into whatever justice awaited. He heard shouts in the distance. His presence had been detected. Security would be mobilizing, perhaps already calling for police backup. His window of opportunity was narrowing by the second. The education center loomed ahead through the rain, its lights glowing warmly against the storm's darkness. Lily would be there, according to the schedule he had observed over the past days. His plan was simple. Approach from the rear entrance, use the master key he still possessed from his company's prior dealings with the sanctuary, find Lily, speak to her briefly, then give himself up. Hector was so focused on the building ahead that he almost missed the sound, a low rumbling that vibrated through the ground beneath his feet, distinct from the thunder overhead. He turned just as a massive shape materialized through the rain-swept gloom. The elephant stood less than 20 meters away, its tusks gleaming dully in the stormlight, its small eyes fixed directly on him. Themba, even without Samuel's educational lectures, Hector would have recognized this particular bull, the elephant that had charged into the river that day, the animal that had done what he, Lily's own father, had failed to do, protect his child. "So we meet again," Hector murmured, an irrational calm settling over him, despite the imminent dangers, both animal and human, closing in. Themba took a step forward, then another, his massive feet making surprisingly little noise on the sodden ground. There was nothing threatening in his posture, but his presence was undeniably imposing, his intent focus unsettling. Hector stood his ground. If this magnificent creature chose to end him here, perhaps that was a fitting justice. Instead, Themba stopped a few meters away, his trunk extending toward Hector, moving in small circles as if sampling the air, collecting the scent of the man who had last been present when he rescued Lily. The shouting was closer now. Flashlight beams cut through the rain. Hector knew his time had run out. He would never reach the education center, never have those final moments with his daughter, take care of her. He said to the elephant, the words lost in the storm's fury. "She deserves better than what I gave her." With a last look toward the building where his daughter sheltered, Hector turned to face the approaching security team, raising his hands in surrender. Inside the education center's secure room, Lily sat with Dr. Nala, Samuel, and Dr. Wang, listening to the muffled commotion outside. The security radio crackled with updates. Suspect apprehended at southeast perimeter. Confirm identity Hector Rothwell. Subject in custody, awaiting police transport. He came back, Lily whispered, her small body rigid with tension. "Why? Did he come back?" Dr. Nala squeezed her hand. "I don't know, sweetheart, but he can't hurt you now." Detective Mutasa arrived within 30 minutes, his police vehicle navigating the muddy sanctuary roads with difficulty. By then, the storm had begun to abate, the violent downpour softening to a steady rain. Hector had been secured in a small office, guarded by 2 officers, awaiting formal arrest and transport. Mutasa conferred briefly with the sanctuary security team before approaching the room where Lily and the others waited. His expression was professionally neutral, but there was a gentleness in his eyes when they fell on the child. "You're safe, Lily," he assured her. "We have your father in custody. He'll be taken to Harare for formal charging." "Did he say why he came?" Dr. Nala asked, keeping her voice low. Mutasa shook his head. "He's requesting to speak with Lily before he's transported. I told him that's absolutely out of the question." "Good," Dr. Nala said firmly. "She's been through enough." But Lily, who had been quietly drawing in a corner, looked up at this. "What does he want to say?" The adults exchanged concerned glances. Mutasa knelt to Lily's level. "We don't know exactly, but you don't have to see him or speak to him if you don't want to. No one would expect that of you." Lily was silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing the outline of the elephant she had been drawing. Then, with a composure that startled them all, she said, "I want to see him." "Lily, no," Dr. Nala began. "That's not necessary. I have questions," Lily insisted, her young voice steady despite the enormity of what she was asking. "About Mom, about why he did it. I need to know." Mutasa looked to Dr. Nala for guidance. As Lily's temporary guardian and a medical professional, her opinion carried significant weight. Dr. Nala studied Lily's face, searching for signs of fear or confusion. Instead, she found a remarkable clarity, the same determined focus the child brought to her drawings, to her interactions with Themba. This wasn't a traumatized reaction, but a deliberate choice. If I'm there with her the entire time, Dr. Nala said slowly, and if he's properly restrained and supervised. Perhaps a very brief conversation. Mutasa nodded, though his expression remained concerned. I'll arrange it, but at the first sign of distress, we end it immediately. As preparations were made, Samuel approached Lily, kneeling beside her with his weathered hands clasped before him. Are you certain about this, little miss? There's no shame in waiting until you're older, until you've had more time to heal. Lily looked up at him, her eyes far older than her 7 years. Themba didn't run away from the crocodile, she said. Simply, I don't want to run away either. Samuel's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You have the heart of a lion, he told her, and the wisdom of an elephant. 20 minutes later, Lily stood outside the office door, Dr. Nala's hand firm on her shoulder, Detective Mutasa and an officer flanking them. Inside, Hector Rothwell waited, handcuffed to a sturdy chair, his once immaculate appearance now disheveled and haggard. Remember, Mutasa told Lily, you can leave at any time. Just say the word or squeeze Dr. Nala's hand, and we'll take you out immediately. Lily nodded, her small chin lifting with resolve. I'm ready. The door opened, and father and daughter faced each other for the first time since that terrible moment by the river, the betrayer and the betrayed, connected by blood, but separated by an act that had severed all other bonds between them. Hector's eyes widened at the sight of her, his face draining of color. Lily, he whispered, her name falling from his lips like a prayer he had no right to utter. And in the silence that followed, thunder rumbled in the distance, a final fading echo of the storm that had brought them to this moment of reckoning. The office was sparse, a desk, several chairs, maps of the sanctuary on the walls. Rain pattered against the windows, a gentler rhythm now that the storm's fury had passed. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Hector's face, emphasizing the hollows beneath his cheekbones, the dark circles under his eyes. Lily stood, just inside the doorway, Dr. Nala's protective presence beside her like a shield. For a long moment, neither father nor daughter spoke. The silence stretched between them, filled with all that had happened and could never be undone. You've grown, Hector said finally, his voice rough with emotion. It was an absurd observation. Barely 3 weeks had passed, but he seemed unable to find any other words. Lily didn't respond. Her eyes, so like Catherine's, moved over his face with an unsettling directness. No child should have to look at a parent with such wariness, such careful assessment of threat. Lily, Hector began again, leaning forward as much as his restraints would allow. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that his voice faltered. I'm sorry. More sorry than I have words to express. Why did you do it? Lily asked, her voice small but steady. The directness of the question seemed to hit Hector like a physical blow. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them to face his daughter's unwavering gaze. I could tell you about the land, about the diamonds, about money and power, he said slowly. Those things were part of it, but the truth is more. He struggled to find the right word. More shameful. I was broken inside, Lily. Broken since your mother died. I blamed you for her death, which was cruel and wrong. I couldn't see past my own pain to recognize yours. Did you ever love me? The question hung in the air, devastating in its simplicity. Hector's shoulders sagged. I don't know if I was capable of love anymore. Your mother took that part of me with her when she died, or I thought she did. He looked up, meeting Lily's eyes. But these weeks, hiding, watching you from a distance, seeing your courage, I've felt something awakening, something I thought was dead. Is that why you came back? To tell me that? Partly, Hector admitted, and to face what I've done. No more running. Dr. Nala, who had remained silent, her hand steady on Lily's shoulder, spoke now. Lily had questions about her mother. Things you've never shared with her. Hector nodded, gratitude flickering across his haggard features. What do you want to know, Lily? What was she like? Lily asked, a tremor finally entering her voice. No one ever tells me about her. Something softened in Hector's expression. For a moment, the calculating businessman, the failed father, fell away, revealing a glimpse of the man Catherine had once loved. She was extraordinary, he said softly, brilliant and passionate about protecting wild places and the creatures that live in them. She could identify birds by their calls alone. She spoke 3 languages. When she laughed, really laughed, her whole face lit up. He swallowed hard. You have her laugh, though I've heard it too rarely. My fault. Did she want me? The question was barely audible. Oh, Lily. Hector's voice broke. She wanted you more than anything in this world. When the doctors told her the pregnancy was risky, they advised termination. She refused. This child is a miracle, she said. Our miracle. She used to talk to you before you were born, telling you about all the amazing things she would show you. The elephants, the lions, the great migrations. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. The first Dr. Nala had seen since the immediate aftermath of the river incident. She died because of me. No, Hector said firmly, with more conviction than he had shown about anything else. She died because sometimes life is cruelly unfair. You were the best thing she ever did. Her greatest gift to the world. I was wrong. So terribly wrong. To ever make you feel otherwise. A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. Dr. Nala squeezed her shoulder gently, a silent reminder that she wasn't alone in this moment. I have something for you, Hector said. He glanced at Detective Mutasa, who had remained by the door. In my jacket pocket. The detective has checked it already. Mutasa nodded confirmation, and Dr. Nala reached into the pocket of Hector's rain-soaked jacket, which hung on a nearby chair. She withdrew a small, worn photograph, protected in a plastic sleeve. I've carried it since the day she died. Hector explained as Dr. Nala handed it to Lily. I couldn't look at it, but I couldn't let it go either. The photograph showed Catherine Rothwell, beautiful and very pregnant, standing beside a much younger, happier Hector. They were on the sanctuary grounds, recognizable by the acacia trees in the background. Catherine's hand rested on her swollen belly, her face alight with joy as she looked not at the camera, but at a young elephant reaching its trunk toward her. That's Themba, Lily said with surprise, recognizing the distinctive pattern of the elephant's tusks, despite his much younger appearance in the photo. Hector nodded. Your mother helped rescue him as a calf. She volunteered at the sanctuary whenever she could. That picture was taken about a month before you were born. Lily stared at the image, drinking in every detail of the mother she had never known. She loved elephants. She did. And she would be so proud of the connection you formed with Themba. Hector's voice grew hoarse. It's as if she sent him to protect you when I failed to. The room fell silent except for the gentle patter of rain. Lily continued to study the photograph, her finger tracing her mother's smiling face. When she finally looked up, her expression had changed. Not softer exactly, but more resolved. I don't forgive you, she said with the brutal honesty of childhood. I don't think I can. Hector nodded, accepting this. I understand, but, Lily continued, I'm glad you told me about Mom, and, she hesitated, I'm glad the elephant saved me. So am I, Hector whispered, more than you can ever know. Detective Mutasa stepped forward. It's time, Lily. We need to transport your father now. Dr. Nala gently guided Lily toward the door, but the child paused, turning back to look at Hector one last time. What will happen to you? She asked. Was Mutasa who answered, his tone professional, but not unkind. Your father will face charges in court, Lily. He'll go to prison for what he did. Lily absorbed this information with the same solemn composure she had shown throughout the encounter. Will I ever see you again? She asked Hector directly. The question clearly caught him off guard. I don't know. That would be up to you when you're older. And to the courts. Lily nodded. A child forced to understand concepts no child should have to face. She carefully tucked the photograph into her pocket and turned to leave. Lily, Hector called after her, his voice urgent now. Whatever happens to me, know this. Your mother loved you with her whole heart. Hold on to that truth, even if you must forget everything else about me. She didn't turn back, but her steps slowed momentarily, acknowledging his words. Then, with Dr. Nala's hand steady on her shoulder, she walked out of the room and back into the sanctuary, where the rain had finally stopped, and a watery sunlight was beginning to break through the clouds. Outside, Themba waited near the building, as if standing sentinel. When Lily emerged, the elephant's trunk rose in greeting, and for the first time since entering the office to face her father, Lily's tense shoulders relaxed. Dr. Nala watched as the child walked toward the elephant, her steps growing more confident, with each meter that separated her from the office where her father remained in custody. By the time Lily reached Themba, extending her small hand to touch his trunk, she looked like herself again, not healed, not unmarked by trauma, but somehow intact, somehow still capable of connection and wonder. She's going to be okay. Samuel said quietly, appearing at Dr. Nala's side. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. Dr. Nala nodded, watching as Themba gently lifted his trunk to touch Lily's cheek, the gesture so tender it brought tears to her eyes. Yes, she agreed. I believe she will. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if the previous day's storm had washed the world clean. Hector Rothwell had been transported to Harare under heavy security, his capture and impending prosecution dominating the news cycles. At the sanctuary, a fragile normalcy had returned, though security remained heightened. Lily sat on the edge of the elephant enclosure, her legs dangling through the wooden fence rails as she watched Themba and the other elephants go about their morning routines. She held her mother's photograph carefully in her hands, studying it in the clear light of day. The connection between her mother and Themba, revealed in Hector's office, had created a new dimension to her bond with the elephant. It was as if a missing piece had clicked into place, completing a picture she hadn't known was incomplete. Your mother loved coming here, Samuel said, settling beside her on the fence. She would sit just like this, watching the elephants for hours. Lily glanced up at him. Did you know her well? Samuel smiled, the memory warming his weathered face. I did. She volunteered here every weekend, helping with the elephants, especially the orphans. She had a special touch with them, much like you. My father said she helped rescue Themba. Samuel nodded. She was part of the team that found him standing beside his mother's body. While the others prepared the transport, she stayed with him, talking softly, keeping him calm. I remember she sang to him, old lullabies in English and Shona. Lily looked back at the photograph, at her mother's radiant face. She looks happy. She was, especially about you. Samuel's voice grew gentle. She used to place Themba's trunk against her belly so he could feel you kicking. She'd laugh and say you were dancing for him. These stories, simple, precious glimpses of a mother she had never known, filled Lily with a bittersweet ache. All her life, Hector had maintained a silence around Catherine that had left Lily with nothing but an empty space where her mother should have been. Now, that space was beginning to fill with images, anecdotes, a sense of connection. Dr. Nala said a social worker is coming today, Lily said after a while, her voice smaller. About where I'll live now. Samuel's expression sobered. Yes, I heard that too. I don't want to leave the sanctuary. She looked toward Themba, who was stripping bark from a branch with methodical precision. I don't want to leave him. Before Samuel could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles drew their attention. 2 cars were coming up the sanctuary's main drive. One, Dr. Nala's familiar Land Rover. The other, a government vehicle with official markings. That will be Ms. Moyo from Child Welfare Services, Samuel said, offering Lily his hand. Shall we go meet them? Lily slipped the photograph into her pocket and took Samuel's hand. As they walked toward the administration building, she cast one last glance over her shoulder at Themba. The elephant had stopped his feeding and was watching her, his massive head turned in their direction, ears flared forward as if listening to their departure. Inside Dr. Wang's office, the adults were already gathered. Dr. Wang behind her desk, Dr. Nala standing nearby, and a smartly dressed woman with a briefcase whom Lily assumed was Ms. Moyo. Their conversation halted as Lily and Samuel entered. Ah, here she is, Dr. Wang said with forced brightness. Lily, this is Ms. Moyo from Child Welfare Services. Ms. Moyo smiled professionally at Lily. Hello, Lily. I've heard a lot about you. Lily nodded politely but said nothing, instinctively. Moving closer to Dr. Nala, who placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We were just discussing your situation, Ms. Moyo continued. I understand these past weeks have been very difficult for you. Lily has shown remarkable resilience, Dr. Nala said, a protective note in her voice. Her connection with the sanctuary, particularly with Themba, has been instrumental in her recovery. Ms. Moyo made a non-committal sound, consulting the file in her hands. Yes, I've read the reports. Quite extraordinary. However, we must focus on long-term stability now. I've identified a potential foster placement in Harare, a couple with experience fostering traumatized children. They have a comfortable home. Good schools nearby. In Harare? Lily's voice was small, but clear. That's far from here. About 3 hours by car, Ms. Moyo confirmed, which would make regular visits here challenging. Dr. Nala's hand tightened slightly on Lily's shoulder. Ms. Moyo, as I mentioned in my application for temporary guardianship, Lily has established significant therapeutic connections here. Disrupting those connections could be detrimental to her recovery. Ms. Moyo's expression was sympathetic, but firm. Dr. Ndoro, while I appreciate your concern and your temporary care of Lily has been exemplary, the reality is that a single professional with your demanding schedule and remote location presents certain limitations as a permanent placement. Samuel, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Might I suggest a compromise? The sanctuary has staff housing that's currently unoccupied. A small house near the main compound. Perhaps Lily could remain here, with Dr. Nala as her guardian, using that house as their residence. Dr. Wang nodded. We've discussed this possibility. The house would need some renovation, but it's structurally sound. 3 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, solar power. It was built for a previous director and has stood empty since they left. Ms. Moyo appeared surprised by this suggestion. That's an unusual arrangement. These are unusual circumstances, Dr. Nala pointed out. Lily's connection to this place, to Themba, is unique. Breaking that bond now could cause significant psychological harm. And what about your clinic? Ms. Moyo asked. Your work? I've been considering taking on a partner, Dr. Nala replied. Another doctor has expressed interest in joining the practice. With shared responsibilities, my schedule would be more manageable. Throughout this exchange, Lily remained quiet, her eyes moving from one adult to another, aware that her future hung in the balance of their discussion. When Ms. Moyo turned to her, she straightened her shoulders slightly. Lily, what do you think about all this? Would you like to stay here with Dr. Nala? The directness of the question, the acknowledgement of her agency in the matter, caught Lily by surprise. She had grown accustomed to adults making decisions about her life without consulting her. Her father, most of all. Yes, she said with quiet certainty. This is where I belong now. Ms. Moyo studied her thoughtfully, then turned back to the file in her hands. There are procedures to follow. Home studies, background checks, court approvals. It's not a simple process. We understand, Dr. Nala said. And we're prepared to follow every procedure, meet every requirement. The sanctuary would provide full support, Dr. Wang added. Housing, community, stability. Ms. Moyo closed her file, her decision not yet revealed in her expression. I'll need to inspect this proposed housing, and I'll need to observe Lily's interactions here. Particularly, with this elephant everyone keeps mentioning. Samuel's face creased in a smile. That can certainly be arranged. As the adults continued discussing logistics, Lily moved to the office window. From this vantage point, she could see the elephant enclosure in the distance. Themba had moved, closer to the fence nearest the building, as if maintaining his vigil despite the distance. He's waiting for you, Samuel said softly, coming to stand beside her. Lily nodded. Beyond Themba, she could see the river glinting in the morning sun, the same river that had nearly claimed her life, the same waters from which Themba had rescued her. The memory no longer brought the sharp terror it once had. Instead, she felt a strange calm, a sense that her story had taken an unexpected turn, but had not ended. Do you think my mother would be happy if I stayed here? She asked Samuel. The old man's eyes grew bright with emotion. Little miss, I think she would be overjoyed. 2 days after Ms. Moyo's visit, the sanctuary faced a new crisis. The seasonal rains had been heavier than usual, swelling the Zambezi River to dangerous levels. What began as a routine weather alert quickly escalated to an emergency situation. As water breached the lower banks and began encroaching on the sanctuary grounds, Dr. Wang called an all-staff meeting at dawn. The meteorological office is predicting continued rainfall upstream, she explained, pointing to radar images on her tablet. We're looking at significant flooding within the next 12 hours. We need to move the elephants and other vulnerable animals to higher ground immediately. Samuel, who had witnessed previous floods in his decades at the sanctuary, outlined the evacuation plan. The North Ridge offers the best protection. We've used it before, but moving the entire herd, particularly the young ones and any injured animals, will require all hands. Dr. Nala, who had been helping monitor water levels throughout the night, turned to Lily. You'll stay at the staff quarters with Mrs. Moyo, she said, referring to the cook who maintained the sanctuary's kitchen. I'll help with the evacuation. But Lily, who had been listening intently to the preparations, shook her head. I want to help too. I can work with the baby elephants. They know me now. The adults exchanged glances, weighing the danger against Lily's evident desire to contribute. It was Samuel who finally spoke. The little miss has earned the right to help if she wishes. She can assist with the nursery calves. They're already in transportable enclosures, away from the rising water. Dr. Nala reluctantly agreed, with the condition that Lily remain on the higher ground at all times, helping to receive and settle the animals as they were brought up from the lower areas. As the sanctuary mobilized, the sky darkened again with approaching rain. Vehicles were loaded with supplies and equipment, while staff prepared to guide the elephant herds along established paths to safety. The more vulnerable animals, a recovering cheetah, some orphaned antelope, and the youngest elephant calves, were transported first. Lily, dressed in a bright yellow raincoat and boots, worked alongside the nursery keepers, helping to keep the baby elephants calm during the move. She spoke to them in a soft, steady voice, much as Samuel had described her mother doing years before. "You're a natural with them," one keeper observed as Lily coaxed a nervous calf into a transport trailer. "They trust you." By midday, most of the sanctuary's residents had been relocated to the ridge. The rain had intensified, falling in sheets that reduced visibility to mere meters. The river had risen another foot, now flowing over the lower trails and beginning to threaten some of the outlying buildings. "Has everyone been accounted for?" Dr. Wong asked, checking her staff roster as they regrouped at the ridge camp. Samuel frowned, scanning the assembled elephants. "Where's Themba?" "I don't see him with the bull herd." A ripple of concern passed through the staff. Themba was usually the most reliable of the sanctuary's elephants, often leading the younger bulls during previous relocations. His absence was both unusual and worrying. "Last I saw him, he was near the eastern boundary," a ranger reported, "but that was hours ago before the rain got this heavy." Dr. Wang immediately organized a search party. "Take the eastern sector vehicles. Use the radio beacon if you locate him. Be careful. Those trails will be treacherous by now." Dr. Nala turned to Lily, who had been listening with growing concern. "Themba knows these floods. He's probably already found his way to higher ground on his own," she reassured the child, though her own expression betrayed her worry. But Lily's face had taken on the focused, distant look that Dr. Nala had come to recognize, the expression she wore when somehow sensing Themba's presence or moods. "He's by the river," she said with quiet certainty. "Where he found me." Samuel, overhearing this, paused. "The old crossing point? That would be underwater by now." "He's there," Lily insisted. "I know he is." Dr. Wang consulted her topographical maps. "If he's at the crossing, he's in danger. That whole area will be flooded within the hour if the rain continues like this." "I'll take the south road," Samuel volunteered. "It's the highest approach to that sector." "Not alone," Dr. Nala said firmly. "I'm coming with you." Before they could depart, Lily stepped forward. "Me too. He'll come if he sees me." "Absolutely." "Not," Dr. Nala began, but Samuel laid a weathered hand on her arm. "She may be right," he said quietly. "Themba has a connection with her we don't fully understand. If he's distressed or confused by the flooding, seeing Lily might be what he needs to find his way to safety." Dr. Wang reluctantly authorized the attempt, but with strict conditions. "You stay in the vehicle at all times, Lily. If the situation becomes too dangerous, you turn back immediately. Samuel, you have the final say." The drive to the southern edge of the sanctuary was tense, the heavy-duty vehicle struggling against mud and rising water. As they approached the river boundary, the devastation became apparent. Trees partially submerged, debris carried by the swollen current, the familiar landscape transformed into an alien waterscape. Samuel stopped the vehicle on a slight rise that still offered a view of the crossing point, now completely submerged, with only the tops of some taller trees indicating where the bank had been. Through the rain-streaked windshield, they scanned the area for any sign of Themba. "There!" Lily suddenly cried, pointing toward a cluster of partially submerged acacia trees, and indeed, barely visible through the downpour, a large gray form could be seen standing in rising water that already reached its knees. "What is he doing?" Dr. Nala asked, squinting through the rain. "Why doesn't he move to higher ground?" Samuel's experienced eyes narrowed as he studied the scene. "He's not alone," he said. "Look, by the largest tree. There's something else there." Focusing their gaze, they could make out smaller shapes huddled on a rapidly shrinking island of ground around the acacia's trunk. Young antelope, perhaps 5 or 6 of them, trapped by the rising water. "He's standing guard over them," Samuel said, wonder in his voice despite the gravity of the situation, "keeping them from panicking into deeper water. But the flood is still rising. Dr. Nala pointed out. Soon there will be no dry ground left for them. Lily pressed her face to the window. We have to help them. Samuel was already on the radio, calling for backup and explaining the situation. The response was immediate, but sobering. Additional rescue vehicles are all deployed to the northern sector. Earliest assistance is 40 minutes away. Water levels expected to rise another 3 feet in that time frame. Too long, Samuel said grimly, setting down the radio. Those animals won't have any dry ground left in 20 minutes, let alone 40. Dr. Nala surveyed their vehicle, a high-clearance Land Rover with winch equipment and emergency supplies. Can we reach them ourselves? Samuel assessed the flooded terrain with the expertise of decades spent in these landscapes. Possibly. The vehicle can handle about 3 feet of water if it's not moving too fast. We could get close enough to use the winch cable, create a lifeline for the antelope. And Themba? Lily asked. Elephants are strong swimmers, Samuel assured her. Once the antelope are safe, he should follow to higher ground. The challenge will be getting the antelope to trust us and not panic further. Dr. Nala looked at Lily, then at the precarious situation by the river. Every medical and parental instinct told her to take the child back to safety immediately. But something else, an intuition born of watching Lily's unique bond with Themba over these weeks, gave her pause. Lily stays in the vehicle no matter what, she said finally. But yes, let's try. Samuel carefully navigated the Land Rover down the slope and into the floodwaters, testing the depth and firmness of the ground with each advance. The water rose around the tires, then splashed against the doors, but the vehicle pushed steadily forward. As they drew closer, Themba turned toward them, his ears flaring in recognition. He raised his trunk, trumpeting a greeting, or perhaps a call for help, that carried even through the drumming rain. He sees us, Lily said, her small hand pressed against the window. He knows we're coming. The water around the Land Rover deepened with each passing minute. Samuel navigated with the precision of long experience, testing each advance, careful to avoid submerged obstacles or sudden drop-offs in the terrain. Dr. Nala kept one arm braced against the dashboard, the other around Lily's shoulders, steadying the child as the vehicle rocked in the current. We're at the limit of safe depth, Samuel announced, as water began to lap at the bottom of the windows. Any deeper, and we risk stalling. They had reached a point about 20 meters from where Themba stood sentinel over the stranded antelope. The small island of ground around the acacia tree had shrunk further, forcing the young animals to cluster tightly together, their eyes wide with fear. Themba remained positioned between them and the deepest water, his massive body creating a partial barrier against the current. We need to secure the winch cable to that tree, Samuel said, already pulling on waterproof gear. Then we can create a pathway for the antelope to follow. I'll help, Dr. Nala said, reaching for her own rain gear. No, Samuel countered. Someone needs to stay with Lily and keep the vehicle ready to retreat if the water rises faster than expected. I can manage the cable. Before either adult could move further, a new sound cut through the drumming rain, the low, unmistakable rumble of water surging over a breach upstream. Samuel's weathered face tightened with alarm as he looked back the way they had come. Flash. Flood, he said tersely. The riverbank must have given way upstream. We have minutes, not hours. Through the rain-streaked windows, they could see a wall of muddy water advancing toward them, carrying debris and uprooted vegetation in its churning path. Their safe retreat was rapidly disappearing. We need to go now, Dr. Nala urged, her medical training assessing the escalating danger. We can't help them if we're caught in that surge. Samuel put the vehicle in reverse, but before he could accelerate, Lily cried out, Wait! Look at Themba! The bull elephant had turned to face the approaching flood wave, his ears spread wide, trunk raised as if in challenge. Then, with deliberate purpose, he moved toward the stranded antelope, using his trunk and massive head to herd them away from the tree and toward a slightly higher point of ground. What is he doing? Dr. Nala wondered aloud. Samuel watched intently, his hands still on the wheel but not yet reversing. I'm not sure, but wait. What happened next left even Samuel, with his decades of elephant experience, speechless. Themba positioned himself on the side of the antelope herd, facing the deepest water. Then, with surprising gentleness for such a massive creature, he began nudging the frightened animals forward, not toward the tree or higher ground, but directly toward the Land Rover. He's herding them to us, Samuel said in wonder. He's trying to bring them to safety. Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the extraordinary scene unfold. He knows we can help. The antelope, young and inexperienced but driven by survival instinct, began to move in the direction Themba guided them. They entered the floodwater hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence as Themba's bulk shielded them from the worst of the current. I need to help them into the vehicle, Samuel decided, grabbing rope and a rescue harness. They won't come all the way on their own. It's too dangerous, Dr. Nala protested. That flood surge will hit any minute. We can't leave now, Samuel said simply. Not when they're coming to us for help. Before Dr. Nala could object further, Samuel had opened his door, letting in a rush of muddy water, and waded out into the flood. The water reached his waist immediately, the current tugging at his body as he secured himself with the rescue rope tied to the vehicle's frame. Lily watched, her heart pounding, as Samuel moved carefully toward the approaching animals. Themba continued his patient herding, occasionally using his trunk to steady an antelope that stumbled in the current. The distance between them and safety closed meter by meter. Inside the vehicle, Dr. Nala prepared the cargo area, folding seats, flat, and laying down emergency blankets to receive the rescued animals. To Lily, she said firmly, "Stay in your seat, no matter what happens." The first antelope reached Samuel, who guided it with gentle hands toward the open rear door of the Land Rover. The young animal, exhausted and frightened but driven by instinct toward the only dry ground available, scrambled inside. The others followed, encouraged by their herdmate's success and Themba's continued guidance. One by one, 5 young antelope were loaded into the vehicle, huddling together in the cargo space, their wet coats gleaming in the dim light, their breathing rapid with exertion and fear. "That's all of them," Samuel called through the rain. "Now we need to get Themba to follow us to higher ground." But even as he spoke, the flood surge they had spotted earlier reached them. The water level around the vehicle rose with alarming speed, now splashing above the door sills. The current strengthened, rocking the Land Rover on its wheels. "Samuel, get back in now!" Dr. Nala shouted. The elderly caretaker turned to make his way back to the vehicle, but the surge caught him, sweeping his feet from under him. Only the safety rope prevented him from being carried away entirely. But the current pinned him against the side of the Land Rover, the water now chest-high and rising. "He can't get back in," Lily cried, watching in horror as Samuel struggled against the powerful flow. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Themba, who had been following the last of the antelope, changed course. With deliberate steps that defied the strengthening current, the massive elephant moved toward Samuel's struggling form. Reaching the pinned caretaker, Themba positioned himself upstream, his bulk creating a break in the current. Using his trunk with extraordinary precision, he gently wrapped it around Samuel's torso. "He's lifting him," Dr. Nala gasped, as Themba raised Samuel clear of the floodwaters. The old man still attached to the safety rope, but no longer fighting the deadly current. With infinite care, Themba carried Samuel around to the driver's side door and held him there, trunk steady despite the rushing water, until Dr. Nala could help pull him inside. Samuel collapsed into the seat, coughing and drenched, but alive. "Thank you, old friend," he gasped to Themba, who remained by the vehicle, water now reaching the elephant's shoulders as the flood continued to rise. "We need to move now," Dr. Nala urged, the medical part of her brain already checking Samuel for signs of hypothermia or injury. "The road back will be even more dangerous with the surge." Samuel nodded weakly, handing the keys to Dr. Nala. "You drive. I'll guide." As Dr. Nala moved to the driver's seat, Lily looked back at Themba, still standing guard beside their vehicle. "What about Themba? We can't leave him. He'll follow us," Samuel assured her, though his voice held a note of uncertainty as he assessed the rapidly deteriorating conditions. Elephants are strong swimmers, and he knows these lands better than anyone. Dr. Nala started the engine, relieved when it roared to life despite the water now lapping at the floor of the vehicle. Carefully, she began navigating back the way they had come, following Samuel's hoarse directions to find the highest ground. Through the rear window, Lily kept her eyes fixed on Themba. The elephant remained where they had left him for a long moment, then began to move, not directly following their vehicle, but taking a different path that angled away from the main flood channel. "He's going another way," Lily reported anxiously. "He's taking higher ground," Samuel explained, twisting painfully to look back despite his exhaustion. "A route too steep for the vehicle but safer for him. Smart old bull." The journey back to the sanctuary's main ridge was harrowing. Twice they nearly lost traction in deepening water. Once they had to detour around a fallen tree carried down by the flood. The antelope in the back remained huddled together, remarkably calm given the circumstances, as if sensing that their best chance for survival lay in this strange metal box, driven by humans. When they finally reached the higher ground of the ridge camp, they were met by a search party that had been preparing to look for them. Dr. Wang rushed forward, her face tight with worry that melted into relief when she saw they were all alive. "Thank God," she said, helping Samuel from the vehicle. "We thought we'd lost you when the flood surge hit." As sanctuary staff helped unload the rescued antelope into a temporary pen, Lily stood at the ridge's edge, scanning the lower ground for any sign of Themba. The rain had finally begun to slacken, visibility improving by the minute, but there was no sight of the bull elephant on any of the visible paths. "He took the eastern ridge," Samuel told her, a blanket now wrapped around his shoulders as Dr. Nala checked his vital signs. "It's a longer route but safer in floods. He'll come." But as hours passed and the water level stabilized, then slowly began to recede, there was still no sign of Themba. Search parties reported seeing other elephants who had found their way to safety, but not the distinctive bull who had twice now played the hero. That night, as Lily lay in her bed at the staff quarters, she heard the adults talking in low, worried tones about search plans for the morning, about the possibility that Themba had been caught in a secondary flood surge or trapped by debris. Clutching the wooden elephant carving Samuel had given her, Lily finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. In her dream, she stood by the river, not the raging, flooded version of today, but the calm waters of that fateful day when Themba had first saved her. In the dream, her mother stood beside her, a gentle hand on her shoulder, pointing across the water to where Themba waited on the opposite bank, his trunk raised in greeting. "He always finds his way home," her mother said in the dream, her voice somehow familiar despite Lily never having heard it in life. "Just like you." Dawn broke over a landscape transformed by the flood. From the ridge camp, Lily could see the Adi extent of the water's reach. Vast swathes of the lower sanctuary submerged, debris caught in treetops, the river itself swollen far beyond its banks. The search for Themba had resumed at first light, teams fanning out along the eastern ridge where he had last been seen heading. Dr. Nala found Lily at the observation point, her small face solemn as she scanned the horizon. "The teams will find him," she assured the child, though her own heart harbored doubts she wouldn't voice. "Themba is resourceful and strong," Lily nodded, but her usual confidence in the elephant's abilities seemed dimmed by the night's separation and worry. "He saved us again," she said quietly, "just like he saved me." "Yes, he did." Dr. Nala knelt beside her. "Samuel might not have survived without Themba's help. The antelope certainly wouldn't have." The mention of Samuel brought a question to Lily's lips. "Is Samuel okay?" "He's resting," Dr. Nala replied. "The exposure to cold water and the strain of the rescue took a toll on him, but he's tough. He's already asking to join the search parties." A small smile touched Lily's lips at this characteristic stubbornness from the elderly caretaker who had become so important to her. Then her expression grew serious again. "I want to help look for Themba, too." Dr. Nala hesitated. After yesterday's dangers, her protective instincts urged keeping Lily safely at the camp. Yet she had also witnessed firsthand the special connection between the child and the elephant, a bond that defied conventional explanation, but seemed to transcend ordinary boundaries. "The helicopter is coming to assess the flood damage," she said finally. "Dr. Wang has arranged for us to go up with the pilot to get a better view of the eastern sector. Would that help?" Lily's eyes widened with hope. "We could see much more from up there." 2 hours later, they were airborne. The helicopter, a small 4-seater on loan from a conservation organization, provided a bird's-eye view of the sanctuary and surrounding lands. The pilot, experienced in wildlife surveys, followed Dr. Wang's directions to sweep low over the eastern ridge where Themba might have sought higher ground. Lily pressed her face to the window, her eyes constantly moving, searching for the distinctive shape of her elephant friend among the scattered groups of wildlife visible from above. They spotted several herds of elephants who had successfully navigated to safety, but none contained Themba's familiar form. "There's so much water still," Dr. Wang observed, pointing to where the flood had carved new channels through previously dry land. "Some of these crossing points will be impassable for days." As they completed their third sweep of the eastern boundary, the pilot received a radio call from the sanctuary. "Ground team reports possible elephant tracks heading northeast, beyond the sanctuary boundary. Request visual confirmation." Northeast? Dr. Wang frowned. That's Rothwell mining territory. The pilot adjusted course, taking them beyond the sanctuary's borders and over land that bore the unmistakable scars of industrial activity, access roads cutting through native vegetation, the distant silhouettes of processing facilities, areas stripped bare for extraction. There, Lily suddenly called, pointing to a distant tree line where the land began to rise toward rocky hills. By those trees! The pilot banked the helicopter for a closer look. Sure enough, a solitary elephant was making its way slowly up a hillside, its massive gray form unmistakable against the green and brown landscape. It's Themba, Dr. Wang confirmed, examining the elephant through binoculars. He appears to be moving well. No obvious injuries. Relief washed over Lily's face. He's okay. But why is he going that way? It's away from the sanctuary. Dr. Wang continued studying the elephant's progress with a puzzled expression. There's something deliberate about his movement. He's not wandering, he's heading somewhere specific. Can we follow him? Lily asked. The pilot checked his fuel gauge. We have enough for another 20 minutes in the air maximum. Stay with him, Dr. Wang decided. Let's see where he's going. They tracked Themba's steady progress through the hill country, watching as he navigated around obstacles with the confidence of familiarity rather than exploration. After about 15 minutes, he crested a rise and disappeared from view into a sheltered valley beyond. We need to get closer, Dr. Wang urged the pilot. Can you take us over that ridge? The helicopter rose and moved forward, revealing the hidden valley on the other side. What they saw left them momentarily speechless. Nestled in the valley was a small, crystal-clear lake fed by springs emerging from the rocky hillside. Around its shores grew lush vegetation, a hidden oasis untouched by mining activities. And gathered there were elephants, at least 24, including several young calves. It's a nursery herd, Dr. Wang breathed, her scientific excitement evident. A safe haven they've established outside the sanctuary. Themba knew about this place, Dr. Nella realized. When the flood threatened the sanctuary, he headed for higher ground where other elephants would be safe. They watched as Themba was greeted by the herd, trunks reaching out to touch him in what looked remarkably like expressions of relief and welcome. Among the elephants, Lily recognized Mama Grace, the older female who had adopted Themba as a calf. Has another family, Lily said softly, a note of both wonder and sadness in her voice. The pilot reports were running low on fuel, Dr. Wang announced, reluctantly turning away from the remarkable scene below. We need to head back. As the helicopter banked to return to the sanctuary, Lily kept her eyes fixed on Themba for as long as possible. The elephant had turned, looking up at the departing aircraft with his ears flared forward, as if aware of who was inside, saying a temporary farewell. Back at the sanctuary, Lily immediately sought out Samuel, finding him in the medical building, where he was grudgingly submitting to Dr. Nala's insistence on further rest. His face brightened at the news of Themba's discovery. The secret valley, he said, nodding slowly. We've had rumors of it for years, a place where elephants go outside the protected areas, a refuge they've established for themselves. But no one's been able to confirm its location. Themba led us right to it, Dr. Wang said. It appears to be on land that's officially part of the Rothwell mining concession, but in an area they haven't developed yet, probably because of the difficult terrain. Samuel's expression grew troubled. If it's on Rothwell land, it's not protected. They could move in at any time if they found mineral deposits there. Lily, who had been quietly absorbing this conversation, suddenly spoke up. It's not Rothwell land anymore, she said with surprising certainty. It's my land. From my mother's. Trust. The adults exchanged startled glances. What makes you say that, Lily? Dr. Nala asked gently. The photograph my father gave me, Lily explained. I've been looking at it a lot. The back has writing on it. She pulled the photo from her pocket and turned it over, revealing Catherine's handwriting on the reverse. Our special place. The Valley of Elephants, now protected in Lily's trust, forever wild. Dr. Wang took the photo carefully, examining the inscription. The land trust holdings would be documented in the legal files. We need to check if this valley is indeed part of what Catherine set aside. For Lily, if it is, Samuel said, his eyes brightening with hope, then Themba didn't just find safety from the flood. He may have led us to the very place Catherine was trying to protect, a secret elephant haven that's been there all along. Lily looked from one adult to another, understanding dawning in her young face. My mother knew about the valley, She was protecting it for the elephants. And now, Dr. Nala said softly, perhaps you can continue what she started. 6 months passed, bringing with them profound changes to Lily's world. The small house on the sanctuary grounds had been renovated and now served as home to both Lily and Dr. Nala, whose formal adoption application was proceeding through the courts with surprising speed, aided by Ms. Moyo's strong recommendation and Detective Mutasa's influence. The hidden valley discovered during the flood had indeed been verified as part of Catherine's land trust for Lily. The revelation had created ripples throughout Zimbabwe's conservation community, a pristine elephant haven, protected by Catherine Rothwell's foresight and her daughter's inheritance, existing right on the edge of what would have been mining territory. On a warm Saturday morning, Lily sat at the kitchen table in her new home, carefully writing in a leather-bound journal, a gift from Samuel for her 8th birthday. Dr. Nala, now accustomed to the rhythms of shared parenthood, prepared breakfast while sneaking affectionate glances at the child who had transformed her life as completely as she had transformed Lily's. "Writing to your father?" Dr. Nala asked, setting a plate of fruit and toast beside Lily's journal. Lily nodded, finishing her sentence before closing the book. "I told him about the new baby elephant born last week, and about my school project on migration patterns." Hector Rothwell's trial had concluded 3 months earlier with a guilty verdict on multiple charges, including attempted murder and child endangerment. He had been sentenced to 15 years in prison, a term reduced from what might have been life imprisonment due to his full confession and cooperation with authorities. What had surprised everyone, including his own defense attorneys, was Hector's unwavering acceptance of responsibility. He had refused to present any mitigating circumstances, declined to appeal the verdict, and requested only one accommodation, the right to exchange letters with his daughter, should she wish it. More surprising still had been Lily's decision, after much thought and many conversations with Dr. Nala, to accept this line of communication. The letters began cautiously, Hector's filled with remorse and tentative questions about her well-being, Lily's brief and factual, offering glimpses of her new life without emotional vulnerability. Over months, something shifted. Hector's letters revealed a man facing his demons in the enforced solitude of imprisonment. Lily's responses gradually included more personal details, more of her thoughts and experiences, though always carefully bounded by the protective guidance of Dr. Nala and the child psychologist who reviewed their correspondence. "He asked about Themba again," Lily said, taking a bite of toast. "He wants to know if he's still dividing his time between here and the valley." Dr. Nala smiled, sitting down with her own breakfast. "And what did you tell him?" "The truth. That Themba comes and goes as he pleases, but he always returns to check on me." Lily's expression brightened. "Samuel says he'll be back from the valley this week. He can sense when the timing is right." Dr. Nala had long since stopped questioning these predictions. Too often they had proven accurate, defying rational explanation but confirming the unusual bond between the child and the elephant. Themba had indeed established a pattern of spending time with both the sanctuary herd and the secret valley group, as if maintaining connections to both worlds. After breakfast, they drove to the Harare courthouse, where the final adoption hearing was scheduled. Lily wore a new dress for the occasion, her hair neatly braided and adorned with beads in the colors of the sanctuary logo. Dr. Wang, Samuel, and Detective Mutasa were already waiting on the courthouse steps, there to support what had become, in essence, an extended family. "Ready for the big day, little miss?" Samuel asked, offering Lily his weathered hand. She nodded, her expression serious but calm. "After this, will my name be Lily Ndoro?" "If that's what you want," Dr. Nala confirmed. "But you can keep Rothwell if you prefer, or use both." Lily considered this as they entered the courthouse. "I think I'd like to be Lily Catherine Ndoro," she decided, "to keep a part of my mother with me." The hearing itself was brief but emotional. The judge, reviewing the extensive documentation of Lily's progress and stability in Dr. Nala's care, found no reason to deny the adoption. When he formally declared them parent and child in the eyes of the law, spontaneous applause broke out from their small group of supporters. Outside, as they posed for photographs on the courthouse steps, a court clerk approached with an envelope. "This came for Lily Rothwell. Lily Ndoro," he corrected himself, "just delivered by courier." The envelope bore the insignia of the Harare Correctional Facility, and beneath it, Hector's distinctive handwriting. Lily accepted it with a small nod of thanks, tucking it into her bag to read later, in private, a boundary she had established and maintained throughout their correspondence. That evening, as sunset painted the sanctuary in gold and amber hues, Lily sat on the veranda of their home, finally opening her father's letter. Dr. Nala worked nearby in the garden, respecting Lily's space while remaining present if needed. Inside the envelope was a short letter and a set of legal documents. The letter, written in Hector's now familiar script, was brief. My dear Lily, by the time you read this, you will officially be Lily Endoro. I want you to know that I am happy for you. Dr. Nala is everything I failed to be as a parent. Loving, supportive, and worthy of your trust. You deserve this new beginning, this better family. The enclosed documents represent my attempt to make right what I can never truly repair. I have signed over my remaining shares in Rothwell Mining to your trust, with instructions that the company be restructured as a conservation-focused entity. The board has agreed to honor your mother's vision. All mining operations adjacent to wildlife areas will be phased out, the land rehabilitated, and added to your conservation holdings. The diamonds that once seemed worth more than your life will now fund protection for the elephants your mother loved in the valley they call home. It is a small justice, but perhaps the beginning of something your mother would have been proud of. I don't ask for forgiveness, only that someday, when you're older, you might visit and tell me about the elephants, about Themba, about the life you've built. Until then, I remain. Your father, Hector. Lily read the letter twice, her young mind working to understand the magnitude of what her father had done. She knew enough from overheard conversations to understand that Rothwell Mining had been one of Zimbabwe's largest extraction companies, that its transformation represented a seismic shift in how business and conservation might coexist. Dr. Nala, noticing Lily's prolonged silence, approached cautiously. Is everything all right? Wordlessly, Lily handed her the letter and documents. As Dr. Nala read, her expression moved from surprise to wonder to cautious hope. This is extraordinary, she said finally. If these documents are legitimate, and we'll have lawyers verify them, your father has essentially converted one of the country's largest mining operations into a conservation trust under your name. Lily looked out toward the sanctuary, where the first evening stars were appearing above the acacia trees. It won't bring back my mother, she said quietly, or undo what he did to me. No, Dr. Nala agreed gently. Nothing can do that, but it might help the elephants, and the valley, and all the other animals. Lily's voice grew stronger. That's what Mom would have wanted. Dr. Nala sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Yes, I believe it is. As darkness settled fully over the sanctuary, they heard a familiar sound from the direction of the eastern boundary, the deep, resonant trumpet of a bull elephant announcing his return. Lily's face lit up with the first genuine smile of the day. Themba's back, she said with absolute certainty. He knows today was important. Dr. Nala no longer questioned such statements. Shall we go welcome him home tomorrow morning? Lily nodded, her eyes fixed on the darkened landscape where, invisible but undeniably present, an elephant moved through the night, finding his way back to the place, and the people that had become his chosen family. Home, Lily repeated softly, the word taking on new depth and meaning. Yes, we'll welcome him home. 2 years after the day by the river that had changed everything, the Zambezi Elephant Sanctuary hosted a special celebration. The occasion marked the official opening of the Catherine Rothwell Conservation Corridor, a protected pathway connecting the sanctuary to the Hidden Valley, now designated as a national elephant refuge. The corridor represented the first major project of the restructured Rothwell Conservation Trust, transforming former mining land into restored habitat. What had once been roads carved for extraction vehicles were now growing over with native vegetation. Where processing facilities had stood, research stations and observation posts now monitored wildlife movements. The scars on the land were healing, much as the human hearts involved were finding their own paths to restoration. Dignitaries from across Zimbabwe and beyond had gathered for the ceremony. Government ministers stood alongside conservation leaders, community representatives, and international donors. At the center of it all, looking both uncomfortable with the attention and proud of the achievement, stood 9-year-old Lily Catherine Endoro, flanked by her adoptive mother, Dr. Nala, and her mentor, Samuel. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, Dr. Nala assured her, as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Dr. Wang can handle the formal remarks, but Lily shook her head, clutching the small speech she had written and practiced for weeks. Mom would have spoken, she said simply. So I will too. Her use of mom to refer to Catherine had emerged naturally over the past year, alongside calling Dr. Nala Mama, a linguistic distinction that honored both women who had shaped her. Life, one through absence and legacy, the other through daily presence and love. When the time came, Lily approached the podium with steady steps. Though still small for her age, there was a confidence in her bearing that many adults in attendance lacked. The crowd quieted, all eyes on this remarkable child whose story had captivated the nation. 2 years ago, she began, her voice clear. Despite her youth, I learned that family can be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the ones who save us aren't the ones we're born to. She glanced toward the edge of the gathering, where Themba stood with several other sanctuary elephants, seemingly attentive to the proceedings. My mother, Hector Rothwell, believed that elephants and humans could share this land in peace, that we could protect each other rather than destroy. Today, we're making her dream real. As Lily continued her speech, thanking those who had made the corridor possible, a figure at the back of the crowd watched with complicated emotions. Detective Mutasa had personally escorted Hector Rothwell from Harare Correctional Facility for this one-day supervised release, an extraordinary arrangement approved by the courts in recognition of his contributions to the conservation project. Hector stood apart from the main gathering, 2 prison guards discreetly positioned nearby. His frame, once imposing in tailored suits and commanding presence, appeared diminished in simple prison clothes. Yet there was something different in his face, a clarity perhaps, or the hard-won peace that comes from facing one's darkest truths. He had not expected to be allowed to attend, had not presumed to ask for such consideration. The invitation had come from Lily herself, delivered through her monthly letter, a simple statement that if he wished to see the corridor opening, she would arrange permission. The gesture contained neither forgiveness nor accusation, only an acknowledgement that his role in this story, however dark, was undeniably part of its outcome. As Lily finished her speech to warm applause, Samuel stepped forward with a ceremonial pair of scissors. Together, he and Lily cut the ribbon stretched across the corridor's entrance path. Cameras flashed, applause swelled, and the gathered elephants, as if on cue, raised their trunks and trumpeted their approval. The formal ceremony complete, guests mingled and explored the visitor center with its educational displays about elephant conservation. Lily, freed from her public speaking duties, found herself drawn to the edge of the gathering where her father stood watching from a distance. Dr. Nala, ever vigilant, moved to accompany her, but Lily gently touched her arm. It's okay, Mama. Just for a minute. With reluctant understanding, Dr. Nala let her go, though she remained watchfully nearby. Lily approached Hector with measured steps, stopping at a comfortable distance. Up close, the changes in him were more apparent, gray threading his once dark hair, lines etched deeply around his eyes, the proud posture humbled by confinement and reflection. Hello, Lily, he said softly, her name carrying the weight of all he had lost. Your speech was beautiful. Your mother would have been very proud. Thank you for coming, she replied, neither warm nor cold, simply present in this difficult moment. I wouldn't have missed it. What you've accomplished here, he gestured toward the corridor, the gathered community, the visible manifestation of a vision transformed into reality. It's extraordinary. Lily studied him with the direct gaze that had always been hers, now deepened by experiences no child should have faced. It's what Mom wanted. Now the elephants can move safely between the sanctuary and the valley. Yes, Hector agreed. No more barriers. The simple phrase carried layers of meaning between them. Physical barriers like fences and roads, but also the emotional barriers of anger, grief, and betrayal that had defined their relationship. They would never be a normal father and daughter, could never reclaim what had been broken that day by the river, but perhaps they could exist in a world where healing, however incomplete, was possible. Themba is going to lead the first official elephant crossing tomorrow, Lily told him, a hint of pride entering her voice. Samuel says he's been watching the corridor construction for months, like he understands what we're building. Hector's gaze moved to where the bull elephant stood at the edge of the gathering. I wouldn't be surprised. He's always seemed to understand more than we give elephants credit for. A small silence fell between them, not entirely uncomfortable, but filled with all that remained unsaid. Finally, Lily reached into her pocket, and withdrew a small, smooth stone, river-polished, and catching the sunlight with flecks of mica. "I found this by the river last week," she said, holding it out. "Where it happened. I thought you might want it, as a reminder." Hector looked at the stone, then at his daughter, understanding the profound gesture she was offering. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps its distant cousin. Acknowledgement that the river that had nearly ended her life had also, in its way, begun a new one. He accepted the stone with trembling fingers. "Thank you, Lily." She nodded once, then turned to rejoin Dr. Nala and the celebration. Hector watched her go, the stone warm in his palm, a small, tangible connection to this child who had survived his worst moment, and somehow forged a path toward something better than either of them could have imagined in the aftermath. As the afternoon progressed toward evening, guests gradually departed. The formal speeches and ribbon-cutting gave way to a smaller gathering of those closest to the project: Dr. Nala and Lily, Samuel and Dr. Wang, sanctuary staff and local community members who had helped make the corridor a reality. They gathered at sunset at the edge of the sanctuary, watching as Themba and several other elephants moved purposefully toward the newly opened corridor. With no prompting or guidance, the magnificent bull led his small herd along the protected pathway, the first of many such journeys that would reconnect ancient elephant roots long severed by human development. "Look," Samuel said softly, pointing to where the corridor path disappeared into the distance. "They know the way home." As twilight deepened into dusk, Lily stood between Dr. Nala and Samuel, watching Themba's silhouette grow smaller against the horizon. The elephant paused at the crest of a distant hill, turning back as if to ensure they were watching. His trunk lifted in what seemed like farewell, or perhaps invitation, before he continued over the rise, bound for the valley where another part of his family waited. "Will he come back?" Lily asked, though she already knew the answer. Samuel's weathered hand came to rest on her shoulder. "Always, little miss. Some bonds can't be broken by distance or time." Dr. Nala wrapped an arm around Lily's waist, drawing her close as the stars began to appear overhead. "That's what family really means," she said softly. "Always finding your way back to each other, no matter how far you roam." Lily leaned into her mother's embrace, her heart full with the complex, beautiful truth of it, how tragedy and miracle had intertwined to create this moment, how the worst day of her life had ultimately led to healing not just for herself, but for the land, the elephants, and even, in his way, her father. "Home," she whispered as the last light faded from the sky, the word no longer frightening or uncertain but filled with promise. Somewhere in the gathering darkness, an elephant trumpeted a response, the sound carrying across the protected land. A reminder that sometimes the most profound connections come from the most unexpected sources, and that love, in all its forms, finds a way to bridge even the widest rivers. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel, and share your own experiences with unexpected heroes in the comments below.